Jared Johnson heads the advocacy group Transit Matters. He says a section of single track between Braintree and Dorchester restricts the number of trains that can travel south, whether to the South Coast or Cape Cod.
This upcoming spring is actually going to be a good opportunity for the state to really start putting their money where their mouth is in terms of some investments that will help South Coast Rail be more successful in the future.
Johnson says the issue could be addressed in the upcoming capital plan of the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. Other changes would also be necessary for Cape Rail. Tom Kerr of the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority says tracks on the Cape would have to be upgraded to handle trains fast enough for commuter service. Jeanette Barnes, GBH News, 89.7.
Here's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You are listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. Good morning, Jim.
Hey there. You know, I don't want to get started on a negative note, but
Why
we're
not?
just watching video, a live, actually, broadcast of President Zelensky on Beacon Hill having to beg these Republicans, pardon me, Capitol Hill, having to beg these Republicans to give him money so that they can defend their democracy. I mean, it is pathetic. In any case, joining us for the first hour is Attorney General Andrea Campbell. She'll take our questions and yours for Ask the AG. Attorney General, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you. Happy holidays, everybody.
By the way, the number, if you want to call her, is 877-301-8970. You can also text her a question at the same number. And if you're here at the library, if you find one of our colleagues, who is our colleague, Hannah, over there, that would be Hannah, and you walk over to her and your question is not preposterous, you have a very good chance of asking the Attorney General the question directly yourself. Nice to see you.
Great to see you all.
So, Attorney General, I wasn't going to start here, but since I just mentioned it to you, and it is so close to Christmas, tell us about the house next door to you in Mattapan.
So yeah, as you all know, I live in Mattapan, and there was a recent Herald article about a bust of some trafficking of meth and fentanyl in the community, and I think, you know, they had some facts wrong. It's a house that is directly next to me. I can look out my window and see this house. It is a major public safety hazard for my family, for my husband, my kids, and for the whole neighborhood. And the sad part is it's been a problem property in the city for probably over 4 years. I had a neighbor, Helen, who was an elder Irish woman who lived in Mattapan probably close to 50 years, loved Mattapan, stayed in Mattapan, sadly died during COVID and the pandemic. And when I was on the city council, started complaining about the house when an individual took over the house, moved into the house, took it over, and just the traffic coming in and out, et cetera.
People all hours of day and night?
I mean, middle of the night, you know, women and just all types of characters coming in and out. So fast forward, I become Attorney General, and, you know, as everyone knows, it's an honor and privilege to protect the safety of everyone across the Commonwealth, and of course want to do that in my own neighborhood. And so the state police led an investigation, a very thorough one, and literally did a bust on Wednesday morning and found significant amounts of meth and fentanyl in that house. And so I'm pushing the city to do sort of its civil part to get that person out of there. And what's sad is the person who is illegally living there is registered to live in Boston Housing Authority. So it's a major issue, and so I'm hoping the city will step up and do its part to address it. And it's just one thing I want to stress, and I'm more emotional because it's like you go out to protect other community, and I have 2 young boys. No one should have to go through this. And folks in Mattapan have frequently said, they often will feel over-policed and underprotected. This is what they're talking about. You complain about something in your neighborhood, something's not right, you call the police, you engage your elected officials, say for years, and you don't get the response that you need with a sense of urgency. So we'll do our part, but I will tell you, it's been a very stressful couple of days.
Why did it take 4 years for, and apparently the city didn't take the ultimate action, the state police did?
Exactly,
So
and kudos to the state police. I mean, I don't want to suggest that, obviously we work with BPD, we work with the city on so many different things, but in this particular instance, I think you got to be a little bit more aggressive and with a sense of urgency and not give an individual who's proven to be a criminal and trafficking drugs the benefit of the doubt.
So the mayor.
And he's back in the house, by the way, which is even more disturbing. And I tell you, when I say it's been a tough couple of days, I'm not, it has been a tough couple of days. And of course, I do my job really well. But it's difficult to do that as you are trying to protect your family and protect the Commonwealth at the same time.
So I assume you're not going to call in for Ask the Mayor, which follows you. In a moment of seriousness, what should be broached with the mayor about this?
Well, I would say, we're pushing ISD, we're pushing the city of Boston to do their part.
Which means what?
BHA, which means to get him out of there, to get him out of our community, to really shut that place down, to not allow it to continue to be a place where they're trafficking drugs, human trafficking, the same thing. It is really disturbing. And I can't stress this enough. I'm not one to, me, point fingers. But when you've been dealing for something for so long, and I have a state police detail that sits outside of my house, and what they see and witness, the powerlessness that they feel, and I think that I feel at moments, is just ridiculous. And so we're pushing really hard. The Suffolk County DA's office has also been doing really great work here. They're prosecuting, this case. They just got it. They just had the arraignment, and they're seeing what they can do as well from their end to sort of help the situation.
I don't mean to make light of any of this, because there's nothing funny about it, but just kind of the idea of someone
doing that
next door.
It's
the
absurd
chief
and ridiculous.
law enforcement officer of the land who's got a state who's got a state police detail out in front of the house. I mean, when you go out to put the garbage out, I mean, do you wave to this person?
Well,
or
one
do you
time,
see them, or do they shovel the snow?
One individual did wave to me, and I thought, the audacity, which even tells you, there are several communities, not just in Boston, but across the Commonwealth, that deal with this level of crime. And I'm really proud to work with a great state police unit in partnership with local law enforcement to get drugs and guns off the street, but of course want to do that in my same neighborhood.
Yeah.
And to do that in front of the state police who are sitting there and their job is to protect my house, my children, my family, particularly as we take on different types of cases that heighten the threat for elected officials, sadly. They can't chase things down, but they've done their part, and now it's sort of pushing the city to do their part. And I say this as someone who served on the local city council, who always pushes our team to be responsive and to move with a sense of urgency, and not to give those we deem to be criminals and who are doing things in our neighborhood any slack.
Well, my takeaway on this, beyond what Marjorie said a minute ago, is you're just an average person who lives in Boston listening to this, and for 3 years a city councilor couldn't get action, and for a year an attorney general couldn't get action. What does that person say to themselves about the next door neighbor they have that's a problem, in the sense of it's hopeless?
It's the same thing. And I think government, I always tell my team, and I'm so proud to work with this team, to say we cannot always be reactive. We have to be proactive. And one way to be proactive is when someone's living in a neighborhood and they're seeing certain things, including in suburban communities where we are seeing human trafficking in a house right next to you, where people are saying, I'm seeing traffic, I'm seeing other things. We have to look into that, and we tend to wait for something horrific to happen. You get the speed humps only after some person gets hit by a car. Yeah. You get the enforcement action only after someone has trafficked meth in your community. And that's just unacceptable. And I think for me, as someone who wants to get things done, not point fingers, this is unacceptable.
We're talking to Andrea Campbell, who's the Attorney General. We'll get to your calls and texts in a minute at 877-301-8970. One other thing where you are taking action, because you have the power to do it, and I don't know how many other Attorneys General are, you've sued some members of this small but problematic neo-Nazi operation here in Massachusetts. Explain what the basis of your case is.
So this is NSC 131, which is the National Social Club, whose primary mission, I think, is not only to terrorize and target residents and visitors who come here who are different, but to promote this idea that New England is only for pure white people of European descent. And I've been stressing that everyone should care about this neo-Nazi group, which is based here in Massachusetts, but doing things across the country, including in New Hampshire. And so I'm really proud of the team that's worked on this for an extensive period of time, doing a very thorough investigation to launch a complaint against these individuals and organizations under our civil rights civil rights law, our public accommodations law, trespass, nuisance. They're going out to target specific people, whether it's the migrants who are coming here, showing up at these hotels and making it more difficult for folks who are running these hotels, doing their jobs, to do their jobs effectively. They're targeting folks in the LGBTQ plus community at drag queen story hours, you name it, which are designed to be family-friendly events. They were just a nuisance, to say the least. And they also do these, patrols where they're going around and dropping literature or just spreading their sort of hate message. And we're saying enough is enough, that we don't have to stand by and let people deal with that, be terrorized. And so I'm proud of the complaint. It's a civil complaint on a whole host of fronts.
What are you asking for?
So we're asking for civil penalties. We're asking for an injunction related to certain behavior. And so more to come on that. We will keep people focused on this. But I will just stress, everyone should care about this. We say in Massachusetts, we're a Commonwealth that is welcoming of immigrants and everyone. We're a Commonwealth that prides ourselves in protecting the civil rights and human rights of our residents, and that we are a beacon of hope and light for so many people. And here we have a neo-Nazi group in the modern day age, 2023, targeting folks of different religious backgrounds, of different identities and demographic, right here in Massachusetts, and we're saying enough is enough. It's absolutely unacceptable.
And by the way, as we've said repeatedly, including when we mentioned your litigation the other day, in addition to sort of urban terrorist types, not your characterization, mine, they're also cowards. These are the 30 people who go around with their face covered.
Right. That's right.
And if they're so proud of their white supremacy, maybe they should uncover their face and talk.
Right, so they're employers and neighbors, and everyone knows who they are.
Because they're obviously proud of what they do.
Tell me how you feel. That's right.
It's interesting, though, you did not include, at least as far as I can tell, in your litigation, a demonstration that these same people did in Arlington outside the governor's house, because you believe that's protected activity?
Well, it depends, right? It's obviously a more late developing notion, and I think I've had conversations directly with the governor on this. I think she also has her stance onto how she wants to respond to what happened outside of her home and measures that she wants to take with her family.
But you didn't think it was actionable, obviously.
Well, we haven't delved into that deeply. We focus on incidents that came through the office, things that had happened in the past in a public nature, and most of our complaint already come together before the incident with the governor.
So that might be added at some point.
It could be. And I think it's just another example of these folks who are looking to target folks because they're different. And let's not forget, our governor is not only the first openly gay person to serve, and to serve obviously as a woman as well. They are targeting her for particular reasons. And I think her progressive stances on protecting migrants in this moment in time as we inherit these issues because the federal government can't create a pathway to citizenship, they're targeting her for that too. And so we're going to stand in support of her and other elected officials who are doing the right thing in Massachusetts.
You're talking about the drug dealers next door to your house in Mattapan. It just happened in
think
Texas.
About that, exactly.
And the first one was from Bob in Worcester, who said, drug bust happened next door to us about 3 weeks ago, half-pound of methamphetamine, 7 grams of coke, a lot of cash. The person's a career criminal. Worcester police have raided his house several times, but he goes to jail, comes right back out, and does it all over again in a very rural, nice neighborhood. He said that this person also had a 3-strike violation on him in the state of California, but was released. I guess it needed more room in the prisons there, and now he's back to the Commonwealth. So I guess I wasn't sure what his question was. He wants the police department tied in Worcester to the National Data Bank. But
well, I will say, I mean, again, local law enforcement in this case, it sounds like stepping up, responding, and doing what they can, and you have to do it hand in hand with the district attorneys, right? In this case, obviously, DA Hayden and his team are actively involved in this. We have recused ourselves in many ways because of obviously the conflict here, and you have to hold people accountable. And I think there's a way to do that, particularly folks who are trafficking guns and drugs in our communities, and be forceful. Give the DAs the resources they need. We're obviously always pushing the legislation.
You say trafficking humans too, is that?
That too, and that wasn't necessarily in this particular complaint and warrant, but there was definitely a part of the investigation, individuals that were also a part of this too.
Let's take some calls, 877-301-8970, Marjorie.
Tom in Winchester, thank you for calling.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you.
And my question for the Attorney General is what agency in the state has responsibility for overseeing the process that Mass Save goes through for the rebates that are designed to be incentives for people to switch over from fossil fuels?
Mass Save.
Based on my experience, the process is really kind of messed up. In June, we installed a new heat pump-based heating and cooling system, and part of that decision was the fact that we qualified for a $10,000 rebate. The documentation for that rebate was submitted in July, and Mass Save did an inspection in August, and then I didn't hear anything. And to make a long story short, after several calls over several months, I was supposed to get a rebate check on December 5th. Instead, I get an email on December 7th saying they don't have the home inspection report that indicates that our house meets the weatherization requirements. That inspection was done by Mass Save, and as part of the documentation, we had to give them the ID number, the Mass Save ID number for that inspection.
Okay, so you want to,
So
Tom, I think we get the concept. You want him to,
yeah, Tom, you should stay on. I have two team members here, but Lauren and Martin, who have notes in the air that I can't really see, but there is yes, agencies involved, but I think it's best if you connect with them. If you stay on the line, we'll connect you with them, and we can follow up on your individual case with Mass Save and go from there.
Tom, do not hang up. Our colleagues will take your contact
yes, Martin
information.
and Lauren are here.
And give it
They're
to...
in the building. They work very hard.
Andrea Campbell's colleagues. Tom, thank you for the call. 877-301-8970. You know, what is the name of the what's your gun unit?
Gun Violence Prevention Unit.
Prevention Unit.
Yes, Christine and Ryan, they are doing great work.
Now, Margie and I spent a lot of time trashing the legislature for being slow on a variety of things.
I won't do that.
I know you won't, so you can do whatever you choose. However, you are focused on a gun issue. One of the many things that they left behind when they went on their 7-week vacation, which they're in the midst of right now, was this gun legislation because of a petty, small, childish dispute about committees and what committee should do what. And while it's standing there, not only is gun legislation, I think either passed by the House or at least acted upon in the House, sitting in nowhere land. But I just read this piece about ghost guns where this Representative David Linsky tells a hearing, a majority of the crime guns that are currently recovered in Boston and Springfield and in some other urban communities are in fact ghost guns. And as of the moment, without this legislation, they're unregulated. You print these out on your 3D printer, go commit a horrible gun crime.
Or get them shipped to your home and put the pieces together. I will say, so we established, when I campaigned, I pledged to do more on guns because we are so progressive here in Massachusetts and we have the opportunity to lead on these issues nationally. So we established a gun violence prevention unit just a couple of months ago. Christine, who is the director, just came. She came from Everytown, which is doing amazing work across the country. Across the country, yes, when it comes to enforcing gun laws and pushing for advocacy and legislative solutions. She's our new director. She's based in Western Mass. Ryan comes from the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, so he's our deputy director, and they've already hit the ground running. And what they're doing is a few things. One is in partnership with our existing lawyers and our CAD law and government bureau divisions, and one, working with the legislature on legislative solutions. It includes advocacy around changing our laws to be able to regulate and enforce penalties against ghost guns. The House obviously has their version, but we're meeting with the Senate, and we've met and had conversations with them more than once as they work through their version. I'm confident that all of us coming together will be able to come up with a final solution of a very comprehensive bill to address these issues. And in the meantime, the Gun Violence Prevention Unit is also, with our Gov Bureau and team, defending our existing gun laws, which are sadly under attack. We're working with other states, New York, California, right now in California, to protect their assault weapons ban. So we're working with other states too, because it's a national issue. We're also doing advocacy to make sure that people know that our office, we want to be sort of a one-stop shop for compliance and training and technical assistance to our law enforcement partners, which we'll continue to do. So more to come, but I'm optimistic. I'm not pessimistic that we will get this right. That we
Is
will
there
work
any
with
argument
folks.
against registering and
No.
putting serial numbers?
Everyone is on the
guns?
same page when it comes to ghost guns. I think the difference between the House and the Senate is the
Is there
Senate maybe
petty disagreements?
Well, I can't speak to, I'm not in the House
Okay.
or the Senate, but I will say is I think the House has their version of what they want to do and the Senate has theirs. I think the Senate will also add additional measures to their piece of legislation that will eventually come out. And then we'll all come together and I think we'll get something meaningfully done, particularly on ghost guns, which we've been at the table informing a lot of that. And I'm really proud of the Gun Violence Prevention Unit. They've hit the ground running and they've only been in a job a couple of months. And I can't stress enough our CAD law division, our administrative law division, who's responsible for defending all of our laws, but particularly these gun laws, have been very busy and on the front lines of doing meaningful work, so I'm grateful to them too.
Attorney General, you and the Attorney General of New Hampshire and some others are concerned about Instagram, and you filed suit to get against Meta.
Yes.
What's going on?
A lot going on, and I know I'll say today probably throughout the whole program that everyone should care about everything we're saying. It's just as every issue we're talking about, and the country is so divisive, and DC can't seem to get anything done, it's coming back to the states, but it really is the AGs that are stepping up. And I'm really proud, and at least with this lawsuit against Meta and Instagram, that it is Republicans and Democrats coming to work together, which is a very rare thing these days. Over 41 states have signed on to this complaint filed against Meta. The New Hampshire AG and I, who's Republican appointed AG, we work closely on a whole bunch of things, including neo-Nazi groups and this. And it's all about a few things. One, saying to Meta and Instagram that right now across this country we have an uptick in anxiety, depression, self-harm, suicide when it comes to our kids. And we are going to prioritize the well-being of our young people here in Massachusetts and across the country. And we know one way of doing that is holding companies accountable that design products that may have some benefit, but also may have some detrimental effect. In this case, we are all alleging that Meta and Instagram is having some harmful effects on our kids by the way in which they design that platform to make them addicted to it, to engage it even more, increasing more of their addictive behavior, and as a result, creating more anxiety and depression and so much more for our young people. We're engaging youth and youth-based organizations across the Commonwealth and the country. It's crystal clear. And what's worse is they put the onus almost on the user to change behavior. When they studied the brains of our kids, they designed the product not for our age group, but for teenagers, for young kids to use it, to make them addicted to it. They studied it, they were intentional. They could change the way in which these platforms are designed, and there are different ideas on how to do that, and they have rejected that. And so we're saying that's deceptive, it's misleading, and under our consumer protection laws, we have a really strong case against them.
Yeah, we had Joan Donovan on yesterday. We'll get to that in a few minutes because she's she's investigating related things. Right. And obviously has a whistleblower complaint against Harvard, which was, among other places, filed at your office. We'll get back to that. Andrew in Waltham, you're next with the Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, good morning. I'm from Walpole, actually, just to be...
sorry. My apologies.
Truth in advertising. No problem.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the call. Madam Attorney General, until recently, I worked for a local nonprofit as a bookkeeper. during my tenure there, I unfortunately uncovered at least $25,000 of theft by a fellow employee who was subsequently terminated. During our recent audit, I was pressing management, the accountant, and the auditor to accurately report the amount that was stolen. They wanted to minimize it. I was fired shortly thereafter for my quote-unquote insubordination, despite at one point seeking whistleblower status. I know the AG's office can't be my attorney, and I don't want to sue. It's an organization that I believe in. But how would you counsel me to ensure transparency and accountability for the organization's management?
Well, it's a nonprofit-based organization. I would suggest and hope that you would follow up with our office and stay on the line. We have a charities division. They do incredible work with all things nonprofits, and it is about transparency and accountability, including misappropriation of funds. So if you are willing to stay on the line, that would be helpful, Andrew, and to share a little bit more, and we can hopefully help to navigate some of this and do it in a way that I think it sounds like you want to be protective of the organization, but still give them the tools they need to deal with this.
Andrew, stay on the line. We'll get your contact info and we'll give it to the Attorney General's office.
Thank you, Andrew.
877-301-8970.
As long as you mentioned Joan Donovan, why don't we complete the circle here? She used to be at Harvard University. She's a very renowned and respected researcher, social media, disinformation, misinformation, that kind of thing. She claims that after Mark Zuckerberg and his wife donated $500 million to their alma mater, Harvard, that her investigations of Facebook were discouraged. She couldn't hire staff. She wound up actually leaving Harvard and going to BU. And I know your office told CNBC it was reviewing the disclosure. What can be, if any, the Attorney General's involvement in something like this?
I don't have a clear answer on that yet. We just got it, right? So when I say we're reviewing it, we're reviewing it. And I think like every other decision, whether it's around, the auditor or some things that are in the news and I know people want a response on quickly, we're reviewing it. And we will do that, and we'll come back with more once we sort of had an opportunity to do just that and to see what we can do in this regard.
One of the things she raised yesterday was the dean of the Kennedy School, Doug Elmendorf, allegedly saying to her that only professors have academic freedom, not staff, and she's not on a tenure track there, even though she's on a tenure track now at BU. Here's a little bit of how she was describing that conversation. This is Joan Donovan, the disinformation researcher, probably the most preeminent one in the country, about her meeting with Doug Elmendorf.
And he said to me, listen, I want you to know you don't have academic freedom. And I was almost on the point of vomiting at that point. And then he said, I want you to know you're just staff here. And I thought about the implications for me, but also my entire team, our staff. And these are people that are publishing about the contentious behaviors of these enormous companies.
Including places like Facebook. Is there a role for the Attorney General's office on an issue like that on a campus?
I don't know yet, but what I will say is, and when I say we're still reviewing what Joan has submitted to the office, we are, and the team we're thorough, we'll put it like that. But what I will say is, I was just at a conference in Washington, D.C. It's an organization, NAG, that hosts Republican and Democratic AGs. And a topic of discussion in many of the contexts with AGs is artificial intelligence, machine learning, misinformation. And I was on a panel with the New Hampshire AG with various experts. We continue to get information out there just to inform folks about all of these new and emerging technologies. And that's where we want to focus on. But one point that was made by one of the experts on the panel was some of the antitrust issues in this context. In the power of these companies, even if you have a whole bunch of startups that are looking to go into AI or to use it for some beneficial purpose for all of us, that they still have to rely on these larger companies, Microsoft, Google's, IBM's of the world, for certain types of infrastructure and certain things to be able to get that technology off the ground. And the concern we should all have about the power that lies and exists within just a few companies and corporations. And it's a legitimate point. And the whole conference and continued conversations around these issues is to make sure that we are not only thinking about it, but also thinking about the role the office plays. So I'm always thinking about what's our lane in these conversations. So the point she makes about these powerful corporations in this context is a bit scary. And so I want to make sure I'm equipped with the knowledge, the expertise. I am not an expert when it comes to these type of technologies. Even hired someone to come back to the office to oversee this work, particularly AI, the benefits and also the potential harms in state government, in the private sector. So more to come, and I think for us, it's looking at how do we use our professors, our institutions right here to offer up that expertise, not only to ourselves, but to the world. So more to come on that.
Lori in Roslindale, you're on with the Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell. Hey.
Hi, Attorney, the work you're doing. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Well, I'm not sure. Keep talking,
Great.
and we'll tell you if we have a phone problem. Go ahead, Lori.
Yeah, so I'm calling because the Transportation Department here in Roslindale has put together a parking plan. And if you look at the descriptive statistics, you'll see that it is disproportionately unfair to our Black, Latinx, and immigrant business owners and residents. And there will be revenues then that will be from parking meters that will be more of it will be paid than white counterparts. So I've taken this to the city councilor, the mayor's office, the transportation department, my state reps. I went to Suffolk County DA's Hayden's office, and they recommended I come to you. And my question is this a civil rights violation? Potentially. And if it is, do you have to be one of the merchants or residents to file it? Because right now there's a lot of intimidation in Rosendale Square when it comes to parking, and I don't need to go into that.
Two things,
But
Lori.
She understands, Lori.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I understand. Two things, Lori. One, I don't know enough, so I don't know anything about the parking plan or anything. I haven't heard anything. So feel free to send us more information. I know the mayor is coming on. I think you should call in and talk to the mayor, who is going to be on at some point later today to get her perspective or feedback on it, because I don't know anything, and obviously it's in the jurisdiction of the city. But if you want to separately follow up with us, you can stay on the line. We can get your contact. You can email us more information and go from there.
Lori, stay on hold. We will get your contact information.
And then call
too.
back later on.
Yeah, that's right.
And the Attorney General is directing you to call back later on there, Lori. So
we are indeed
do as you please.
Talking to the Attorney General. Andrea Campbell will be with us till the top of the hour, taking our questions and yours. If you want to reach her, text her, call her. Try 877-301-8970. I believe we have a homing mic right here at the Boston Public Library, too. Hannah's over there in the corner of the desk. If anybody has a question, feel free to come up and ask it. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're broadcasting live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. At noon, the mayor will be with us for an hour, Michelle Wu. And if you call in before that, the Attorney General will tell you whether or not you should call in to talk to the mayor as well. Apparently, she sees that as her role. The number is 877-301-8970. The Attorney General is with us until 1 o'clock.
So, Attorney General, I'm getting a lot of texts today about cashlessness or cash not being accepted. I know that I know Maura Healey, before she was the governor, she was in your role, Attorney General. She signed off on Fenway Park. You can go, I guess, some deal where you put cash into a machine, then you get a card back. Gillette is cashless, TD Garden. I guess the Boston Calling Music Festival is. We have texters saying that they have not had cash accepted at Bay State Medical Center, UMass Memorial Medical Center, and somebody says they couldn't get cash. Buy cash at the Nutcracker. So that seems kind of...
Oh, I'm going to be at a date with my son tonight at the Nutcracker.
That's right, you brought it, but your credit cards, your debit cards. So what is the deal in Massachusetts with cash?
Cash has to be accepted everywhere.
It has to be accepted everywhere.
And so we are actively reviewing this. Obviously, some things happened before I got into office, and first of all, the folks who are texting or sending you messages about this, it would be helpful if they also, of course, reached out to the office, mass.gov/AGO.
Okay.
To just file these complaints, because the more we know about which vendors we're talking about, the better. I was talking to someone yesterday that brought their grandkids to a game and wanted to give them cash to go get a hot dog and not a credit card, 12-year-old, and expressed frustration about not being able to do that in certain venues. So we're actively reviewing this. We're in conversations with some of the folks that you just mentioned based on what was done or said previously. So more to come on this. I know we've gotten a lot of outreach here. Give me a little bit more time. We'll be back on this in terms of what the law is and how folks have to come into compliance. And we also are mindful that whether it's young people, elders, not everyone has a credit card, not everyone has a smartphone app, and in various ways in which people are expecting them to pay. They have to take all forms of money. So more to come on that.
877-301-8970.
Dave from New Hampshire, you're on with the Attorney General of the Commonwealth.
From New Hampshire.
Yes,
wrong state,
that's
but
right,
we're
wrong
glad to have you,
state,
Dave. Go
that's
ahead.
okay.
I work for the MBTA, so it counts.
And you...
So the commuter rail operator does not comply with the Massachusetts earned sick time law. Do you think state contractors should comply with a law such as important as the earned sick time law?
Well, I absolutely think you should comply with all of our laws. But if you want to stay on, Dave, obviously you work for the T in a particular department. Can you stay on and just connect with my team? And we'll get more details and follow up with you on your specific case.
Stick around, Dave. Thank you.
Move back to Massachusetts. You have a nice AG up there, but move back to Massachusetts.
I knew that was coming.
Now, okay.
Thank you, Dave.
Here's something I'm really excited about, having been a frequent customer when I was younger of Rent-A-Center. Lots of people rent things, whether it's big speakers or it's furniture. Or what's going on with Rent-A-Center?
So Rent-A-Center, I want to make sure I get the number right, too, because we've had so many settlements come out recently, and I'm really proud of this one. And YL, who leads our consumer protection division, and Michael worked in this case. I got to give them a shout out because they work really hard. In this case, and growing up on Mass Ave, we had a Rent-A-Center on the corner. It's no longer there. It's now a restaurant. But there are a lot of companies like this where you sort of rent to eventually be able to buy. And there were folks who weren't able to pay, and for different reasons, they articulated that. And what Rent-A-Center did was to use very aggressive tactics to go after these folks, calling them more than they should, threatening them, using harassing language, just really causing significant financial and emotional harm. And we know that many folks would say they are in certain communities where it's largely poor people and communities of color. And so we are very concerned about tactics like this used to exploit folks in certain communities. So the team reached a $9 million deal with them, which they'll pay to the state, and some of that will have be restitution and other ways to resolve these issues. And I'm confident going forward they will adjust their practices. And it also demonstrates to, I think, to other companies like this or who are thinking about coming here to do work like this, that we are really focused on, as we think about how we build wealth in certain communities, exploitation of certain communities is critical.
Yeah.
And there are certain companies that are doing it only in certain communities, and our consumer protection folks are on it. So I'm just grateful to the team for their work here. It's
Can we
significant.
stay on consumer protection for 1 second? You've also spoken about these atrocious hidden convenience fees. You find some outrageous price for a ticket. You say to yourself, well, I'm going to do it because I really love him or her or them or whatever. And then you click on it and you find out there's a $50 convenience fee or resort fee or something. What are you doing about this?
So before I go into that, because my team is so good, Adam, I also am shouting you out from CRD for his work on Rent-A-Center, which is a major settlement in our Civil Rights Division. So it was consumer protection, civil rights coming together. And you know me, I like to thank my team because they are overworked and underpaid.
Well,
Adam, thank
checked.
you.
There are 3 people in your office you haven't thanked yet. Do you want to thank them now, or do you want to?
There's a whole bunch of folks I can thank, but I could go on. You know me.
No, I think that's actually it's a wonderful quality. To be perfectly honest.
They do so much, and many of these teams are small, and they work really hard. And these settlements, they sometimes can take years or shorter period of time to really deliver for consumers. So junk fees.
Junk fees, that's right.
Junk fees. Everyone pay attention to junk fees. Everyone should be concerned about this issue. These are these hidden surprise fees that show up when you're going to purchase a product or a service. So say, for example, you were advertised a product, or you're buying a product, it says $100. And at the end of the transaction, you're paying $300. And you're like, wait a minute, what happened? These are fees, service fees, convenience fees. There's always a new name for them. And we're saying here in Massachusetts, our consumer protection laws are so strong that we're going after those. So we put out proposed regulations, which we're asking folks to comment on. They can visit our website to do just that. There's an in-person opportunity to comment on these junk fees and how they affect you and your family as you go about buying things on December 20th. And we want folks to comment, and we want folks to weigh in, because we have an opportunity not only to require greater transparency so that, for example, when you're going to buy something, companies have to reveal to you at the front end the total price of the good, including those fees. They have to go a step further. They also have to make sure that they tell you what the fees are, why they are being assessed. Are they mandatory? Are they optional? And if they're optional, for example, or they're waivable, how do you go about waiving them? And so really specific. And then also when it comes to these subscriptions and trial offers, sometimes you opt in, you buy it, and then to try to get out of it, it's a total nightmare. You can't opt out the same way you opted in, or you can't unsubscribe the same way you subscribed. And so we're saying you can't do that either.
Do you have the power to enforce these things?
Yes, we do.
You don't need legislative.
Yes, we do.
Okay,
and the federal government is doing something in this space. I want to give credit to the Biden administration on this. We've taken it a step further in a couple of aspects. But this is, when we talk about affordability issues, this is a major issue. And so we just hope folks will pay attention to junk fees and participate in the comment period, because we need to hear your voices on this.
Sarah on the Cape, you're on with the Attorney General. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Sorry, I didn't expect to get through.
It's okay.
I'm super happy to be able to ask you this. I voted for you. I voted for the governor. And my question is about the women that are being killed by these abusive men that actively have restraining orders, and survivors coming forward and having senators. I'm echoing, and having the senators call them liars and PR stunts. So really, there's no avenue for us to make sure that even the laws we have are in place. As an all-female cabinet, what do you guys plan on doing to address this at any time?
Well, Sarah, I don't know if there's something reading between the lines, if there's some other layers or specific case or cases you're referencing. So if you want to stay on, I'd be happy. First of all, thank you for the support. I'd be happy to follow up with you on this. We do a lot. Obviously, we have, whether it's Human Trafficking Division, the Active Crim Bureau that takes these cases very seriously. And I would just add a trauma-informed approach that our team delivers on that is not always the case, including sometimes where you're interacting with judges or others. So we do our best to show up in this regard to do what we can. And so just stay on the line. I think we can explain more, but if there's some more specific cases that you want to reference, that would be helpful.
Sarah, stick around. We'll take your contact information. You mentioned you were at a meeting a couple of days ago of attorneys general, including some Republicans. Can we, for a second, talk about one of the most sadistic of them, Ken Paxton, who is literally about a foot ahead of the law and is lucky that he's still the attorney general.
That's right.
The Supreme Court there ruled that despite a lower court ruling saying that a woman in an individual situation had a right to an abortion despite the laws of Texas, that court was wrong. Ken Paxton went right after it, talking about, I think, prosecuting the doctor, too, if it had been performed. The woman ultimately had to leave the state because she was 21 weeks pregnant.
And her
there was
fetus
great
was
risk
diagnosed with a fatal condition.
Exactly.
That's right.
What do we do, because I've heard you talk about it before, and the governor, actually, what do we do for women who are in jurisdictions like Texas where these kinds of things happen? What can we do? What do we do?
I think we've done a few things already. You know, we have the abortion hotline here in Massachusetts, which is open to others outside of Massachusetts to call to get a deep understanding of what their rights may be and to do it in a very confidential way. And we've done that with a whole bunch of stakeholders to get that off the ground. We have the Reproductive Justice Unit, too, which is also, we set up, it's a new unit in the office that's doing remarkable work, working with other more like-minded states to protect these folks' rights in other states and doing it as a collective, which I think is really important. In addition, that same unit is here in Massachusetts looking at what we need to do to improve our laws in terms of access and how do we support community-based health centers in particular that are making sure that where there are deserts here in Massachusetts to reproductive health care, to getting an abortion, that doesn't exist. In this case, this Cox case in Texas is painful. And if folks don't know about it, they should read up on it. This is a woman who obviously wants to become a mom and a parent, and unfortunately found out some terrible news about what would happen if she were to give birth, possibly stillbirth for her child, or her losing her own life. And so goes into court to follow all the laws and the procedures as defined by Texas, gets this order, and to have the Texas AG, which, by the way, is as if there's nothing else to do. How busy are you? Really, I'm going to direct all my energy and resources here to essentially block her in the court to also get this terribly wrong. It just speaks to the state of affairs when it comes to reproductive justice and reproductive freedom in this country, and just how draconian it is, the laws are in the state of affairs in certain states, including Texas. But I'm grateful for some of our southern states that are stepped up led by Democratic AGs, to really do their part. At the same conference, you know, it's different conferences. We have the Arizona AG, we have the New Mexico AG. We have many folks who are doing their part, and we're all going to continue to do that. But this is why this issue continues to be a voting issue, a pressing issue, is because it is about freedom. It's not just about access to an abortion. I tell folks, regardless of how you feel about that particular issue, this is about how you parent, how you choose to parent, how you choose to raise your family. And in many cases, life and death. And in this particular case, it highlights this is life and death. And it's really unfortunate, as someone who is about to lose, and as a mother of two young boys, who is about to lose a child, has to go through this traumatic process on top of that. And the harm that will cause her and her family, I can't even imagine. So we'll continue to do our part, and we have an opportunity to do some really remarkable leadership work here in Massachusetts, and we'll do that.
You know what I
Thank you for raising that, because we have to work with some difficult AGs in this country right now.
You know what I wonder? I mean, I'm not a lawyer, you're both lawyers, but it just seems that somehow what they've done to this woman, and it's also might impact her future fertility.
That's right.
Saying that she is facing these significant health risks, too bad. Tough.
That's right.
You can't do that to a man in the United States of America. And I always think, isn't there something someone can bring a case or something about that? Because it's basically saying you're just a vessel. You know, you don't have rights as a full-fledged human being.
Well, I think where we are focusing our efforts is to protect our existing laws as they exist now, to this right to access to medicated abortion, to reproductive health care, period, and gender-affirming care. All health care should be available to everyone. And yes, it is absolutely about not just women, birthing people who are being challenged every single day in this country with the choices the personal, private choices they make on how they parent and how they choose to rear a family, which that is a personal decision. Government, get out of our way.
Yeah.
And the other piece, so that is just as significant and sad, is these folks are in these positions of power because people voted or people didn't vote. So civic engagement during this time is critical. Most of the AGs who are on the front lines and on the right side of this particular issue are Democratic AGs, and most are voted into office. And so what does it mean to exercise our civic engagement, our right to vote, to put people into office who align with our values, even if you disagree on certain things, you're not going to agree on everything, but who are about protecting the safety and well-being of people and the safety and well-being of this woman. And clearly this Texas AG is not concerned at all. And I don't know him well. He has been at different conferences at different moments, randomly showing up and then leaving. But I think is just a reminder of what it means to exercise our right to vote. 2024, 2026, these are major years, particularly in the context of AG races. And AGs are on the front lines. Yes, our governor does remarkable work, our other elected officials too, but in other states, AGs are significant, just like here in Massachusetts. So we have an obligation to vote, but also to protect those who are doing meaningful work to protect our rights.
Yeah, and she could have not, if she had not had the money, she would have been stuck in Texas.
That's right, and God bless, the folks on the front lines, the legal service organizations, the advocates, folks here who are traveling to our southern states, including Texas. Our healthcare industry here is so incredible. They're on the front lines training folks on how to provide reproductive services in other states. So Massachusetts is leading in so many different ways. It's remarkable. But at the same time, the face of our political system right now, there's a lot at stake, not just in the context of our basic civil rights and human rights. When we think about democracy, the state of our affairs as we go into a presidential election, which is going to be a very scary time in 2024, this is a time for us not to run away, but to really lean in and to show up and to advocate and to make our voices heard and to exercise civic engagement. I can't stress that enough.
We only have a couple of minutes left. I assume you've consumed either the podcast or the written series on the murder of Carol DeMady Stewart in the Globe the last couple of days.
Somewhat.
And you were young.
Absolutely. I was at Latin school.
10.
Yeah.
No, I think, you were born in the early 80s, am I right?
That's right.
Right, and this is 89. What's your takeaway as somebody who was so young then and a boy? What's your takeaway from the series?
It's interesting because I think it's a great series. I think it not as a trigger, but it does bring back that time period because although I was young, I do remember people talking about it, the fear in the community. I grew up in Roxbury in the South End. The fear in the community. Mission Hill was not far away. And I think they're speaking to so many different things, the silence by either folks who are in government or folks in community who knew certain things but didn't say a thing. The media and how the media frames things and the bias within that reporting or the jumping to conclusions. Clearly this bias still exists in so many systems today, and clearly we still have work to do. So I applaud the team there, Adrian Walker and others who are doing some remarkable work. And I know it's probably painful for so many people to have it come back. And I'm sure it was challenging to figure out the various angles in which to bring back such a painful, tragic story, but to do it in such a way that can hopefully get us not to do something like that again. But we still have work to do, and that framing piece is critical.
Attorney General, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your time. I hope
it's
they
great
straighten
to be
things
here.
out next door.
And happy holidays to everyone, including those in the audience and the callers. And thank you all for the work you do.
Yeah, to you too. We have been speaking with the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, AG Campbell, and thanks for everybody who texted or called. Sorry we couldn't get to most of them, but we tried. And coming up next, we tried.
We got to a few. We did a few.
Okay, we did a few. We did. We didn't get to them all. We have a lot of texts over here, Jim. You didn't see the texts.
I didn't see the texts.
Hundreds of texts.
You're in charge of the text.
I'm in charge of the text, that's right.
I would say you're the problem,
Well,
Marjorie.
I'm trying. I'm reading as fast as I can.
Okay, fine.
No thanks to you. Coming up next, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu joins us live at the library as well. After the noon news, a session of Ask the Mayor, taking our questions and yours, 877-301-8970. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. It's streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. You're listening listening to Boston Public Radio.
In a statement, the corporation says we unanimously stand in support of President Gay, and we are united in our strong belief that calls for violence against our students will not be tolerated. Gay has faced backlash for her legalistic response to a hypothetical question on calls for Jewish genocide during her congressional testimony last week. History professor Allison Johnson organized a petition calling on the Harvard Corporation to resist pressure to oust its president.
I was delighted to see the corporation confirm that President Gay will remain in her post, that we as a university are an autonomous and independent body that doesn't bow to political pressure.
The move to keep Gay in power comes days after the University of Pennsylvania's president resigned over similar testimony. Kurt Carapeza, GBH News, 89.7.
He is Jim Brady. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again. Marjorie, we're now joined by Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. She'll be with us until a little after 1 o'clock, taking our questions and yours for Ask the Mayor. You can call or text her at 877-301-8970. Or if you're at the library, you can go to Hannah, and who is our colleague, and tell her you want to talk to the mayor. And in all likelihood, actually a few of you already have, and in all likelihood you will. Mayor Wu, it's great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming in, Mayor Wu.
Thanks for having me.
Because things are so depressing, well, not everything's so depressing, we thought we'd start with 2 things that aren't depressing. Tell us about First Night and Toys for Tots.
Yes, we are thick in the middle of holiday preparations at the city with 2 beloved traditions. First Night is going to have a little bit of a revamp this year because we're hosting on the newly renovated City Hall Plaza. So we encourage everyone to come check that out. It will be beautiful and fun and family friendly throughout the entire day. So I look forward to seeing everyone there. And on the Toys for Tots side, again, this is something that we bring the entire community into every year. We are looking for donations and support for folks who might want to bring an unwrapped toy to your local fire station or police station or any city spaces, where we will then collect everything, sort of sort it by age, and then find ways to get it to families and kids who could use a little extra love and cheer this season.
So they can show up at a fire station or police station?
Yes, there will be boxes there, and you can just drop that
and
off.
just drop them off. That's great.
How many trees have you lit?
I think I'm about just at 40 now. Yeah, and we did the big menorah, the going up very high, 20-some feet menorah. We have a couple more menorahs this week. I did a pirate ship. I did a trellis. I did the Comav Mall.
How hard is it to pretend you're still having a good time by the 37th?
I love it. I mean, each countdown is exciting in its own way, and you just get the chance to catch up with families, and sometimes especially for the little ones, that is their moment that they remember. They get to update me about their lives and everything that's happening, so it's beautiful.
You know, we're going to get into a lot of city business and stuff like that, but you also have a connection to one of the major controversies in the country around the 3 university presidents who testified in front of Congress the other day, and were asked that question about genocide by Representative Stefanik. Apparently the Harvard Corporation has unanimously decided that they will support Claudine Gay continuing as president of Harvard. Did they make the right decision? I mean, you went to Harvard, we should say, for those who don't know. Did they make the right decision in your estimation?
So I come to this situation with sort of both of my hats on, right? As someone who's an alumna and really, has had some experience through the institution and the university, and then someone who is now interacting with Harvard in a different way and working on projects together and looking to partner and ensure that the resources there are connecting directly to Boston neighborhoods. I support the statements and the actions of the board in very carefully deliberating and making sure that they're, as the president apologized herself and recognizing that every characterization in a public role makes a difference. The words that we choose matter, and I also have a sense of what it's like to take just a short clip out of a very hostile, long situation, and I think she's been in there for just a very, very short time, and that actions speak louder than words. Words, of course, matter as well, but we need to make sure that all of us are taking action to ensure the safety of all of our community members, to very loudly and unapologetically condemn the hatred and violence that has taken place and that may threaten and intimidate our community members locally. And I look forward to continuing to partner with the university, with all of our universities, including Harvard and MIT, on how to make sure we are creating opportunity in those kinds of spaces here in Boston.
The number, if you want to text or call the mayor directly, is 877-301-8970.
We talked to you a lot about the Boston Police contract, and you're getting some credit for some reforms. What were the ones that mattered to you?
This was a big deal, and it took a long time. The city of Boston has now done something that no other city has, and that we have not been able to do in the past, and we're not done yet. We came after a year and a half of negotiations with the union who represents the vast majority of our sworn police officers at the Patrolmen's Association. We have agreed to a contract that is now before the Boston City Council. They, I believe, still might be in their hearing right now on that. It adds a cost of living increase that is consistent with what our other municipal unions have gotten. This is now a partially retroactive contract because our officers have worked since 2020 through the pandemic with all the changes since without a contract and without those adjustments. It also makes some very significant changes to removing arbitration as a loophole that was used to avoid or override disciplinary decisions of the commissioner in a certain list of serious criminal acts, just to really put our money where our mouth is in ensuring that our officers are held to the highest standards of accountability for those who are sworn to protect and serve. It also makes some changes to the detail system when you see a major construction project or something happening in the public street that you need someone to guide traffic around it, ensure people are safe. It makes some changes so that we can distinguish the ones that are high priority, very risky, have a big impact on traffic and need to be filled first, unlike the previous system, and provides greater personnel to do that because 40% of all details have been going unfilled, which is leading to a lot of challenges and, frankly, a lot of overtime from the department directly paying for those. We also make some changes to medical leave.
In other words, so that if the department's not going to be paying for those anymore because they're going to go to other people, that will get paid by another entity.
Yeah, okay. Any of these, I'm going to go, if you're interested, I'll go all the way down the rabbit hole because these are quite significant. On the detail system, these are privately reimbursed, privately compensated shifts that are done by our officers off their clock, outside of their normal day. And what happens is the construction companies or the large event organizers will put in for an event permit, and if it's deemed that there's a security risk with traffic and et cetera, then they're required to have a detail for a certain number of officers on scene. Previously, only police officers could participate in these details, and because not many were, we didn't have that many available to fill all the shifts, many were just happening without any of that extra help. It was also the same rate of compensation for all details across the city, those on a very quiet side residential street in a neighborhood, or one that is very involved and actually quite risky. And so we do two things in evening out and changing the compensation structure and the priority structure of the details to say which ones really need to be filled first for public safety and traffic flow, and then open up the personnel that's available to include university police, other types of sworn officers who are not police officers, and also the opportunity for civilians to take part as well.
I don't want to belabor this too long. There's a lot of this stuff, but I just want to mention the crimes that are going to be taken out of arbitration, allegations of murder, rape, kidnapping, drug trafficking, etc. They would not be in arbitration. But one of the complaints from like a civil rights lawyer, one of the names in the Globe Stories, is Howard Friedman guy, points out that this does not include excessive force, which is one of the things I think a lot of people are very concerned about. So if a cop is accused of excessive force, then he would still go to an arbitration thing if Internal Affairs finds that he did something wrong. So those kinds of things are not going to be covered.
Wait a second. I thought if Internal Affairs did sustain a finding of excessive force, it would be precluded from arbitration. His point, I thought, was that rarely does that happen, a la the Captain Danilecki thing we've discussed with you ad nauseum.
I think there's two separate points there. Excessive force is not on the list of the 30-some violations that are now precluded from arbitration.
So even if you're found to have used excessive force by Internal Affairs, Marjorie's right, you can...
That's right. There's still a whole category of other offenses that we were not able to get onto this list in this first negotiation. And again, no police department in the country has been able to remove arbitration in any situation whatsoever. So this is a really, I think, a groundbreaking agreement that reflects the officers' overwhelming support and vote to ensure that we are publicly holding our force to these standards. The other point that was made in that article about the internal sustaining versus going to arbitration or going to court, there's this question about whether the Internal Affairs Department would actually go through all of the actions to hold someone accountable internally to result in the disciplinary action that could then be challenged in arbitration. The reality, though, is that we see this happen in departments everywhere, and we have seen this happen in Boston as well. What negotiated, the list of very serious offenses that are on there, unfortunately, this would have had an impact with several officers who were found to have evidence of internally to have found evidence of committing those offenses and or external action, and were then returned to the force as well. And so we know that this is going to make a difference, and we have more work to do certainly, but we're very proud of the step that's been taken.
We want to get to calls. I just want to say, while you said that the mayor has gotten a lot of praise, and she has, the union agreed to this. So I think we should, since the Patrolmen's Association is often the subject of criticism by at least one of us, they agreed to this.
Well,
and I think they deserve some praise as well.
I guess. I think that it might have been nice if excessive force was in there as well. And one last thing, there were 5 officers that were fired this year that have come back through arbitration. Were any of these serious crimes?
I know that at least in the case of, I don't know all of the individual cases, but there's some. I will point out that sometimes when someone is returned, if you look back in the history, there were also other situations that would have been caught by this list. And so we know it will be impactful. And I agree with Jim that this is a huge deal that we reached this agreement through across the bargaining table, first of all, and then with an overwhelming ratification vote by our officers. This, again, no other department has ever done this. It is a real public demonstration that the Boston Police Department intends to continue being the best in the country, and that includes recognizing the need for continuing to earn public trust.
Let's go, instead of going right to the calls, we have somebody who has a question here at the library. I don't know if I pronounce, Mano, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes.
Thank you, Mano.
Yes,
you're
yes.
with the mayor. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Marjorie, Jim.
Hi.
Hello. Thanks for a great show as always. Mayor, well, thank you for making yourself accessible. I voted for you. I was really happy when you were elected because of where you stand in many issues, but also because of the message that your presence in City Hall sends to young girls, including my 12-year-old daughter. Thank you for that. Unfortunately, you do not have her vote right now. And being a 12-year-old girl, you understand that she probably don't have my vote either. She controls what's going on. So the exam school admissions policy directly excluded her from the school of her choice last year. And she wasn't alone. Many other kids were excluded, many of them economically disadvantaged, when the same exact policy gave 351 rich kids, that's according to BPS data, bonus points and admission to the exam schools. Now, a lot of pressure. My question, there's a question here, I promise, Jim. The question is the following. Superintendent Skipper is going to announce tomorrow night some changes to this admission policy after a lot of pressure from parents, advocates, and the school committee. Where do you stand? Do you support the changes of this policy to make it the equitable policy that was intended to be, or do you think it should stay the same?
Mano, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for raising the issue and for speaking up on behalf of not only your daughter, but many families who have concerns. And I really appreciate you taking the time to make sure that her voice matters and makes a difference. I will just say the superintendent and I, as with myself and all of our cabinet members, we always move in coordination. So we have been in close discussion and analysis of the data for the steps that she will be communicating to everyone. And I think that we owe the community an even larger analysis and report back. As you know, this has been a policy with many, many twists and turns. It was begun, the process to discuss this was begun now multiple years ago before our administration. And then even as it was finalized through the pandemic, the implementation of pieces of it were not possible because large tests could not be given in the middle of the public health crisis. And so it's kind of been here and there, and even though it feels like a very long time, we only have 1 year of data on the full policy being implemented because of all those different changes and things along the way slowly ramping up and being added in as the public health situation changed. Excuse me. And so there was concern about making drastic changes to a policy with only 1 year of data. Now, that is incredibly difficult because it is real students and families who are right at that point, and waiting another year, waiting 5 years as the policy requires, means that multiple classes of students will be potentially denied the benefit of any changes or tweaks that may happen. I support the need for all of our schools to reflect opportunity available to all of our young people, and for the improvements to our schools to ensure that we are creating equity across each one of our high schools. That is the driving push that we're making. That also means that each individual school's admissions processes need to feel fair, understandable, and that we're not creating unintentional situations to solve a larger challenge, which end up falling on a small number of people. And so I think, again, we'll see tomorrow the superintendent's announcement, and that will be one small step, because we only have 1 year of data, but we are working very hard on a number of different things. One is to try to, for example, respond to the push from families who are interested in exam schools to issue the notification sooner than it has been in the past. We know that as families are making decisions about high school, traditionally, Boston Public Schools has been the very, very last to give a response on what your opportunities could be, and therefore you might have already needed to have those hard decisions or even made taken financial actions in a different way, and then it's too late or it just complicates things. So we want to help ease that burden a little bit where possible. It's quite complicated, and we're still working on all of the many steps to do that, but we hear that as a priority in the very short term as well. And then the bigger picture is really getting into the data once there are multiple years of data, and having a very honest and open conversation with the community about what is working, what is not working, what is achieving the initial aims that were laid out, and what needs to be adjusted from there. So I can promise you that this is something that is a constant topic of conversation within our administration, and that I stand very closely coordinated with the superintendent on what the future steps should be.
Mano, thank you for coming, and thank you for your question.
One quick follow-up. I don't know if this is what Mamalas was talking about, but I used to ask Marty Walsh this all the time when he was the mayor, that, as you know, what happens sometimes is kids go to the Park School, or they go to the Dexter School, they go to some very expensive private elementary school, then they come and test into, or try to test into the exam schools. I don't know why, if there are preferences for different things, there can't be a preference for kids coming from the public schools, because that would drive me nuts too if somebody went to some $50,000 a year school for 6 years and then transferred into Boston Latin.
In some ways, this is the issue that Mano's bringing up. So the basic shape of the changes to the enrollment process, which have been in place for a number of years now, but again, only recently fully implemented, are instead of the previous system, which had a test administered and then looking at your basically English/language arts and math grades for the year before, and then those were basically averaged together, and then you were just offered your place according to how you had prioritized the schools, and then the ranking of the combined score. The city had experience that had led to certain elementary schools not having representation at all within the exam school system, and the disparities within the acceptance invitation and then acceptance rates of Black and brown students, particularly at one of the exam schools, was quite stark. And so there was a move away from that specific test, which was not based on the BPS curriculum, and therefore you could really benefit from outside tutoring and the resources to participate in that. So we've moved away to a new test, as well as, in addition to the grades and test component, having 8 socioeconomic tiers across Boston, and each of those categories having a certain allocation of seats equally and offered through rounds, so that we could guarantee representation across all socioeconomic backgrounds. However, the additional piece that gets a little bit at the issue that you're bringing up, Marjorie, is that certain schools are offered, or most of the schools in Boston district are offered an additional 10 points added to your score if you are at a school with 40% or greater percentage of students at the poverty level receiving benefits.
So that's trying to balance that out.
So that gets at the public school issue, but there are a very small number of our elementary schools that are above that threshold or below that threshold, and therefore do not get the points even as a Boston public school. We could not legally defend a rule that would only preference Boston public schools versus other locations that students were coming from. And so that was a little bit of a proxy, but it's having some additional consequences that have been quite stressful and don't seem to make sense in every case for a small number of students.
Let's go back to the phones. 877-301-8970 to call or text. Dr. Mitchell in JP, you're on with the mayor. Welcome.
Well, hi, Mayor. We're very happy to have you as our mayor, first of all. I have 2 issues that I'd like to bring up, not quite as important as the issues you've been discussing, but one is the development going on in the Fenway. And I guess it's sort of a quality of life issue. The traffic issue through the Fenway is horrendous. And there doesn't seem to be a master plan that I can see. And there seems to be also no enforcement of traffic rules in the area, and trucks and cars parking, double parked, triple parked, getting through the area is horrendous. And the second issue, somewhat related, is the Jamaica Way and Arbor Way. There seems to be no enforcement of heavy trucks passing through the area, and it's become a big safety issue that I can perceive over the years, and there seems to be, again, no enforcement at all.
Doctor,
and I hope.
No, we got it.
I think
she's going to address both. Doctor, thank you much for your call, Mayor.
Thank you. There's a couple pieces to what you're raising, which are issues that we hear from many, many residents in that area, and as a key corridor in the city, many who are passing through. There are a couple moving parts in terms of new developments that have been proposed and others, and we have some priorities as we think about the growth in the Fenway area in particular. One is that with such a treasure in the Muddy River and the Fens, the impact of shadow and how we set consistent, clear policies around that is really important, and we've been working on that as we work through the proposals that are there, including some to help provide more resources to the anchor institutions in the area, such as the universities. Another piece is, as you point out, the traffic flow is not where it should be, and there are some key corridors that, for example, the Charles Gate area, the on-ramps, this and that aren't quite working well, and we have, in the planning process, some transportation projects, sometimes in coordination with other levels of government, to be able to very much improve the flow in that area. We also know that we need to have more civic space in the Fenway neighborhood. It's a little bit of a distance away from downtown, but as a neighborhood itself, it does not have the same level of amenities and sort of public, community, civic, city-owned space, and so we've been working to address that as we think about development in addition. But all of those have to fit together, and there are some key next steps with major decisions being made about developments and about the transportation corridor. And so I hope that we will see the improvements on that very soon.
Doctor, thanks for the call. If you had time this morning to happen to read who the Globe named as Bostonians of the Year.
I just saw a quick look. That should be Bostonians of every year.
So
every year.
And they are the beleaguered MBTA commuters. The mayor, if you're not watching on streaming, is smiling. So speaking
highlighted as one of those, a woman who apparently, Nicole Morello, who went down to the Red Line with a placard around her neck saying, "We deserve a better tea."
We don't need to choose anymore in future years. It's going to be the MBTA commuters forever.
Phil Lang was kind enough to spend an hour actually taking questions from people. It was wonderful. On Friday, one of the things we broached with him is your free bus pilot program, which I believe expires in March. We asked him about that. What happens after March? Here's what Philip Lang had to say. How about continuing free bus service on those routes post-March? Is that something you're contemplating? What are you going to say to her?
We're open to that. We're talking with the city with regards to that. So
Is your expectation that it will continue post-March?
I believe that's the intention.
So what is going to happen post-March to the free bus routes? And in a related thing, it sounds like low income, at least some means-tested fares, are in the offing quite soon. Could you speak to both, if you don't mind?
Yeah, and I'll toss a third issue in there as well, that are about this interplay of how to get more people onto public transit by taking down the barriers. We hope to continue this. We're working with the MBTA. Currently, the City of Boston is providing funding to replace the level of rider fares that had previously been collected on the 3 bus lines that are now the highest ridership of any in the city along a key economic corridor, and have been without financial barriers for some time now. So we intend to find the city resources to continue that and want to keep working. I hear from other municipalities in the area all the time about wanting to partner and tackle some of the bus routes that cross municipal boundaries, and there's a couple that we had been working on, and so we hope to keep following up with the T on that. Low-income fare would be a great step forward. It was wonderful that the legislature passed a pilot and put some funding behind it, and that the Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Monica Tibbetts-Nutt, saw the need to not just treat this as funding for another extended study, but to get going and to acknowledge that we know it works, and we know this will open up opportunity and mobility for everyone. So eager to see what they release in terms of who will be eligible and how quickly that can get going. The third issue I want to raise on this, again, in the vein of all of traffic is connected to the MBTA's reliability and our commuters' willingness and trust in choosing that option. We know for a fact that as the MBTA has become less reliable, traffic has gone up. And it is many people I hear all the time from folks who were long time commuters on the T who now simply cannot make it to work with reliability given how long the wait times are between trains or buses, or between how long the rides are themselves. And so every step that we take to invest in public transit is a benefit for traffic flow as well. It's really the only way to sustainably fix our traffic situation. And so there's really low-hanging fruit in the MBTA system on our commuter rail system. There are folks who live close enough to hop on the commuter rail. At this point, among all of the modes of public transit, bus, subway, commuter rail, the commuter rail is the most reliable way. It's the fastest often. However, the fares are different than on the other lines. And in Boston, for example, 3 of our outer neighborhoods have to pay commuter rail fares that are up to 3 times as expensive as a subway fare just to get to jobs or where they're going downtown and around the city. That would be a very, very quick way. If we were to, like other cities do, count every city's commuter rail fares in one pricing zone and make sure that that is compatible in Boston with the MBTA, with the subway pricing, we would open up hundreds of people now in Hyde Park, West Roxbury, Rosendale, able to afford to choose a monthly pass on the commuter rail rather than driving and trying to find parking and all of that, contributing to traffic. And so the city of Boston has a big role to play in eliminating all of the slow zones across the city. Every time the green line or the red line or any line is shut down, our transportation department, funded by taxpayers across all of the city, including those excluded commuter rail neighborhoods, fund the mitigation so that people can move on the surface, on surface roads more quickly with shuttle buses and other adjustments to the lane allocations and other things. And so we've been asking for strong partnership from the T in a continued way. I think Phil Eng is just a godsend for all of us. His expertise, his creativity, his patience, his organizational leadership, and I'm really confident that we can help support him by making some of these tweaks to keep making the T more accessible and therefore fix traffic. It's a hard conversation right now because we know every transit agency is looking at a fiscal cliff with federal funds from the pandemic drying up a little bit. We have to rethink how we fund this, but the short term, I don't know the exact English phrase about penny for pound, penny foolish.
We had a problem with that the other day. Penny wise, pound foolish.
Yes. That's it, yeah.
And so by keeping commuter rail fares way out of reach, we're actually punishing ourselves by creating more traffic unnecessarily.
We're talking to the mayor of the city of Boston. She's going to be with us at the top of the hour. The number is 877-301-8970. If you want to call or text, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. That is, you're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming on youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. She is Marjorie Egan. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. We're in the middle of Ask the Mayor with Boston's Mayor Michelle Wu. She's kind enough to join us once a month, and she'll be with us for about another 28 or 29 minutes at 877-301-8970. So one of the owners of Mamalas will be with us in a few minutes, gave you something.
A jelly donut, thank you.
And jelly donut. And I rudely said to you, don't you have anything for us, as you always do? And the answer was yes.
I happen to have gifts. So the show and tell for this month is beautiful art pieces from the local hand.
Ooh.
They are one of our space grant recipients. So this is a brand new business that we were able to help support with the City of Boston's program to ensure that our businesses can open up throughout our neighborhoods. So the owner very generously has wanted to make sure that you, I don't know the color preferences of your homes or offices or whatever, but I will leave both of these to you,
Very
and
kind.
along with some information on Michaela, who is the owner and artist.
Local hand.
That's right, in Dorchester.
You know, before we get back to questions, well, this is actually a question. State of the city, since we're talking so much about the future, there's no date, or there is a date?
There is a date.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Wood. That is my preference,
Thank you.
actually. I love
Well,
it.
actually, I want Marjorie's. Can I?
No, you
I'm
can't.
kidding. Go ahead. When is the State of the City?
January
Mayor Wood?
9th. In the evening, we'll be back at the MGM.
Great.
They have lots of space, beautiful venue, and we're eager to share some of the updates on what we've been working on over the last year as a report back, and also what we can look forward to in 2024.
Fabulous. 877-301-8970.
You know, we talk about the housing shortage and the cost of housing around here. Two exciting things, the old Y and Clarendon Street, some plans for the West End affordable housing. The Shattuck plans are kind of shrinking, I guess, from what they originally were. But tell us about housing updates.
This continues to be the most pressing issue for residents everywhere, and we are trying on all fronts to make sure that we're putting resources to housing. It's in the individual projects, including some that you mentioned. Everywhere, the West End, for example, is the library project, a very sort of short, small building that needed renovation as a library structure. And so in partnership with David Leonard and our wonderful Boston Library team, we are redeveloping that space to the most modern and beautiful for as a library, and then adding affordable housing on top. In fact, Boston has the ability to build and then have the federal government fund certain types of public housing units, and so that will be incorporated into that project. We're also looking at large parcels of land that the city owns, like the parking lots across from the water and sewer building, or parking lots in Chinatown and in Charlestown, and we are partnering to fund affordable developments wherever we can, and also to update our zoning code so that we can ensure there's more predictability for housing growth across our neighborhoods too.
It says, what's 140 slots at the Clarendon Street Y?
100, right?
Yeah, I think that's the address.
Yeah,
140 Clarendon.
140 Clarendon.
But it's somewhere in that universe also. And these are it's run by the Pine Street Inn, an incredible partnership that required a lot of creativity in putting together the financing across all levels of government and local community partners. And it's, you know, especially this time of year, the ability to see that project really fill up and have people celebrate the holidays, and as the weather grows cold, have a nice, warm home. This is what we wish for every Bostonian, and we still have work to do.
So, Mary, if you're ready in a second, we're going to get to you in 30 seconds. Just get by the mic. In the interim, Lois from Mission Hill has my favorite question for the mayor, I believe. Lois, welcome to the show. How are you? Lois. Hello, Lois.
Oh, here.
There she is. I'm sorry. That's my mistake. Hi, Lois. What's your question for the mayor?
Hi. Okay. My question is partly reflective of the gentleman who called from Fenway. Namely, we note that we have no master plan either in Mission Hill, and that we have a lot of traffic congestion, but partly due to the developers who apparently are very hungry and are nipping at our heels at all moments. We have the misfortune of being between two subway stations, even though, or lines, even though they're about 8 or 9 long blocks apart, and up one hill and down the other to get from one to the other if you want to go by both. We have...
hey, Lois, what happened to what you said to the call screener? You wanted to know why local issues are settled by the state and not the city.
Yes.
How about that one?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lately, I have heard on the radio, possibly on this program,
I think so,
that some of these decisions about taller buildings that are much higher than anything else in the neighborhood have been the decision by the state laws of
rather than the
zoning,
city, right? We got
instead of city, yeah, right. And I'd like to know whether that is true.
Lois, thank you for the call.
Thank you. And I would say same thing applies as we talked about Fenway and Mission Hill in terms of traffic flow and wanting to make sure we have a clear way to coordinate all the pieces of that. In terms of buildings being taller because of the state, the ways in which, anyway, The state does have way too much say over much that Boston does. We do our best to partner with them wherever we can, and our local delegation works really hard to represent the city among the voices of all all across the Commonwealth. The state controls the building code, and they had not updated that in some time until very recently. So last year they released some updates to that reflected more energy efficiency requirements, and that has been a huge success. Boston has opted into the most stringent version of that since it became available. But by and large, most of how tall a building is and the built environment tends to fall to cities, except for the building code. So I unfortunately may be the one to blame for an issue if you're thinking about that particular one. But there are many other places where we can engage the state, but that one I think may be on the city.
Lois, thank you for your call. Mary?
We have Mary at the libraries. Homie Mike here. Hi,
Hey.
Mary.
Jim and Marjorie, thank you very much. It's great to be here, that you give us the opportunity, and I listen to your show all the time.
That's very nice. Thank you.
I live in Brighton. I've lived there for 35 years, and last March, my neighbors paved their garden, extending their driveway without a permit. And now the water, when it rains, accumulates at the bottom of their driveway and floods my basement. I filed a complaint with ISD, which resulted in a violation, saying that they needed to fix the grade and install a berm, or they were going to have to remove it. My neighbor is a plumber, and he knows everybody down at ISD, and he made the violation disappear. There's been no enforcement of what ISD wanted them to do. I've tried talking to lots of people, and the last person I've talked to is my city councilor, and she's basically said that I would have to sue the city to get the city to enforce its own code. And I don't have enough money to sue the city. I was wondering what you could do to help fix that.
Thank you for coming, Mary, and I'm sorry you've had to go through all of that, and I appreciate you highlighting it for me. Why don't I follow up and understand the specifics of this situation? I know Councilor Braden is fantastic and probably has a pretty good handle of the situation, so there might be something that I'm not necessarily aware of, which is driving this. We need to have consistency and fairness. We should not in any way have a system where someone's personal connections can influence things, so I want to be sure that I understand what's been going on here. The issue about stormwater and how one parcel's decisions impact everyone else is one that we are thinking about taking action on very much. We have a green infrastructure department whose responsibility is to try to find whatever ways, whether it's sidewalks and public space or supports for development decisions, in order to try to divert as much stormwater away from our pipe system as possible. As rainstorms become more intense, we saw in Leominster over the summer just how much these kind of flash flood situations can happen, and that is a function of the weather now the precipitation now coming down much more intensely than our pipes are designed for. And in a city as old and built out as Boston, we can't just rip up all the pipes and replace them with bigger ones for those one-off situations where the storms take place. We need to find ways to divert and hold that water through what's called the gray infrastructure system sometimes. And there are changes that are moving forward, for example, with the Water and Sewer Department rethinking how they are adjusting their fees and their financing to have stormwater very prominently separated out in order to then be able to give credits to residents who have more permeable pavement. So those who are wanting to go the other direction in removing pavement from their driveway and replacing it with gravel or more porous material, they can actually get credits off of their water bill to recognize the fact that they're then helping us absorb more water instead of diverting it into the pipes, which then cost money to treat and deal with and prevent flooding. So there's some things happening under the surface, literally, to try to work on all of that.
Mary, if you give your contact information to Hannah, we'll transfer it to the mayor's office, if you would. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. You know, Mayor, there was a story in Commonwealth Beacon, which used to be Commonwealth Magazine, it's now Commonwealth Beacon, talking about newly released data that indicated there was more than 1,600 substantiated cases, I'm reading from it, of sexual misconduct, bullying, and bias-based incidents that occurred at Boston public schools in the last 2 years. The piece goes on to say, but Boston school officials are refusing to release details about the individual incidents with identifying information redacted, despite being ordered to do so by the state supervisor of public records. What's your response to what they wrote?
We need to ensure that any possible concern related to these very serious issues, bullying, harassment, anything that's taking place in our schools is very carefully documented, and that we are keeping track of what's happening. I haven't been briefed on the specifics there in terms of where the conflict is, but I know in many cases there's additional push for privacy of those who are reporting or might be involved when it comes to such sensitive cases of sexual harassment or assault or situations regarding children. So I will look into that more. I don't have the details specifically on what the conflict might be. Oftentimes when we when we see a letter come back from the state supervisor of records, it can be just saying we need to provide a fuller explanation of why certain records were being withheld, rather than just saying you need to put out the individual name. It can be very difficult to protect privacy, even with redacting individual names, when a school community is small and there's other details and this and that. So it's definitely a balance. We see this on the public safety side as well, that there are extra legal protections that exempt certain records from being fully open to the public, in order to ensure that anyone who might be reporting an incident doesn't feel that their information could end up, through public records law, unintentionally becoming public and therefore threatening their privacy. So I will sort that out, but I don't know, I'm not familiar with that specific interaction.
We're talking to the mayor, Mayor Wu. She's available to you too at 877-301-8970.
Bethany, Jamaica Plain, thank you for calling.
Hey, Bethany. Bethany?
I was hoping that Mayor Wu could speak about the Shattuck redevelopment that's supposedly going to happen over the next few years in an area that is defined as Mattapan. There's been very limited public engagement around it. It was originally supposed to be 75 to 100 beds, was my understanding. And then the BMC came in with the big proposal for 850 beds and some of it's permanent supportive housing. That site is supposed to be for public health, not housing. And now there's an article in the paper saying that the project is going to be shrunk to some degree, as you guys already noted on the program. But we're already seeing impacts of like a huge uptick in the number of 311 calls that are going in to report needles being strewn about. We see people actively shooting up in Franklin Park, and from residents that we believe are coming from these little cottages that were supposed to be temporary, and now a year and a half later they're still there.
So Bethany, what's your question for the mayor, if I may? What's your question?
Yes,
for
would
the
the mayor support an effort to halt and restart the redevelopment plans, restart the public engagement process around the Shattuck, because the neighborhood's only just starting to learn about what's happening, and it seems like a travesty in the works.
Bethany, thank you.
Thank you. This has been again, there are many processes that have now sort of overlapped throughout the pandemic and multiple political transitions, and involve lots of different entities. This one is one of those pretty complex situations. The RFP was first put out, and there was processes many, many years ago, and then responses came back, and then there was only one response that was made to this particular site. This is a state parcel and a state project, and so the city we are following this, but this is not somewhere where we have direct oversight over the decisions that are being made here. But we're working very closely because as Boston plans out our public health campus on Long Island, we need to ensure that everything else that is happening in the area is complementary. And our Long Island plans have really been moving forward since the RFP process kicked off. And so there's sort of been multiple strands now that we need to pull together. I will say that what we hear across every neighborhood, what we see in terms of the numbers and the growing pervasiveness of the opiate crisis is we need more supports in more places. And so every possible spot where there is public health resources, it's a very, very big cost to lose that and would need to be carefully planned. And so the push to ensure that we are providing real modernized facilities in order to accommodate the uses that have long been there, that is something that we as a city are trying to ensure doesn't get lost in the larger conversation. We do need to have quality of life protections and resources available, and I definitely hear that Franklin Park has to be a priority area there. As we've been able to take steps forward on Mass and Cass and see the encampments shut down and everyone connected to housing and services, there have been more city resources available and our community partners resources available to then provide mobile outreach for those who need support in all the other parts of the city, not just standing and waiting at Mass and Cass because everything is so dire there. And so now that situation has very dramatically shifted, we've been able to deploy more resources in a more reliable way elsewhere, and we know we still have work to do in Franklin Park. There's been a large community-driven action plan for the park in general that we hope to see some major progress on as well, because we need to make the most use of this park outside of that particular parcel in addition. So we're going to stay very closely involved and particularly in coordinating the Long Island planning with what's moving forward here, but the city's not really driving this conversation, and so far there's still a lot of open questions around the funding sources, where it will end up, who will be involved in which particular needs that are being served there, as we map out what's happening on the island.
Bethany, thank you much for the call. We appreciate it.
You're talking about supported housing at the Shattuck. I was surprised that the Boston Public Health Commission has paid $2.3 million just this year through November. This was the story in November for private security at Mass and Cass, where the tents had been for quite some time. That's the city, right? So the cops need reinforcements. Is that the problem?
There have been many organizations. Just yesterday, I met with some of the representatives of businesses in South Bay just to do a review and hear from everyone on how things were going and what their concerns were headed into this or in the middle of this holiday shopping season. And we see that the large, long-standing previous encampments and gatherings at Mass and Cass really did have impacts beyond the area, and many
the mall
organizations.
In South Bay with the
mall in South Bay, the Greater Boston Food Bank, the Boston Public Health Commission. There was need for additional resources to ensure public safety for the employees and workers in the area. And so, again, I can't overstate how important it is and how impactful it is in many different ways that we have turned the corner on that dynamic. We have a lot more to do in making sure that we can sustain and keep up the progress that we have seen. And of the residents who had been housed coming out of the encampments, there have been a number, 22 or so people who had not accepted a placement that was made available. The team has not relented in following up and staying connected with every single one of the people who needed supports. And even on that list of 22, 17 people have now been connected with a placement and are on a good track to find the supports that they need. And we continue to work even on those last 5 individuals and ensuring that we can stay as coordinated as possible in providing supports.
Prior to you, for Ask the Mayor, we had asked the Attorney General, and the Attorney General commented on a story in the Boston Herald midweek, which said, the end of last week, which said a man is accused of distributing crystal meth and fentanyl out of a Mattapan house that's located 2 doors down from where Massachusetts AG Andrea Campbell lives. She says it's actually not 2 doors, it's right next door. And she said, her words were, "I've often felt my neighborhood is over-policed and underprotected." She said as a city councilor, when you were both serving together, she complained about not only drug trafficking, but she believes human trafficking next door. Nothing happened. The state police are the ones who did this. She said in the 4 years, the vast majority of which was not under your leadership, obviously, but your predecessors, the Boston police have never investigated the concerns there. Less asking this question about the Attorney General, because obviously she can fend for herself, but an average person living in Boston who is in the exact same situation she's in, if she can't get action as a city councilor and Attorney General, what do you say to a ordinary citizen who faces a situation like this?
I can't speak for what happened before under previous administrations and under different transitions, but our mission under this administration and this police administration under Commissioner Michael Cox is to ensure that we are as closely partnered with community members as possible. We need to be earning the trust of our residents in order to deliver safety for everyone. And that means not only being present at neighborhood associations where hopefully we could learn of and identify these types of issues across everyone, not just those who are in elected office, but to have connection points and to have the relationships broadly where anyone feels comfortable and supported in reaching out to make those claims. And so we very much encourage anyone who needs support or has a concern to reach out directly to either their local police captain or community service officer in that area, or please elevate it and find opportunities. Commissioner Cox has made it a trademark of his to personally be out as well, and he now has taken what used to be confidential internal information through what's called our CompStat program, where they analyze the statistics across every part of the city. It includes some sensitive information in there. He made a point of adopting a version of that with proper privacy protections and names redacted and different things amended so that it could be publicly shared, and they continue to do that precisely to encourage residents to participate and to get involved. And there have been numerous changes where it's not only that these public CompStat sessions are for the public to learn about what's happening, but in fact our officers get better ideas, specific situations and or strategies and trends that community members know most of all because they are living this every single day, and we need to rely on that if we want to be the safest city in America.
We have a couple more minutes with Michelle Wu, the mayor of Boston. The number is 877-301-8970. Tell us about this community choice electricity rate program, which, at least according to this State House news story, is going to offer rates at least for 7 months lower than Eversource does in the city.
This is a push that I was very proud to be part of on the city council and took many, many years, but we finally have a city-run electricity program which guarantees better sourcing in terms of renewable energy, a higher sourcing than is required by state law, and a thorough vetting of the providers. And so this is an opportunity for anyone in Boston who wants to switch up to more renewable energy to do so through a trusted source rather than through some of the third-party suppliers who can be quite predatory and actually end up scamming people. We needed to provide a trusted public source. And in fact, as we've been saying all along, going green also means saving money, because we are able to benefit from some of the contracts that are set in a different way than the standard default electricity plans. And so the Community Choice Electricity Program, you can access it on the city website. The pricing is in different periods of time, about 6 months at a time, and the pricing for this next period is lower than the default utilities, and so you can support green energy while also, more importantly, saving some dollars that goes right back to your household budget.
Why don't we end this session with Rich? Are you here, Rich? Rich, where are you? Run. Sorry. Rich is at the mic at the library. He has a question for the mayor. Welcome, Rich.
Mayor Wu. I'm an employee of REI, so I'm really happy that you have the support for getting kids outdoors. And I can't remember the name of the program, but I'm just wondering how successful it's been.
Thank you. I'm a proud co-op member myself and very much enjoy the philosophy of making sure that everybody shares in the benefits of the great outdoors. We have a Connect, Learn, and Explore program, and the idea is that every child growing up in the city of Boston should have every resource in the world, and we want to focus on 5 areas of learning how to bike, knowing how to swim, being involved in the arts, playing youth sports, and getting your hands dirty in the dirt, growing and being involved in nature. And so there's been a number of initiatives launched on each one of those: free bike lessons, equipment, opportunities for youth sports that we'll keep building on as we look to renovate White Stadium and really invest in Boston Public Schools athletics. And we saw a lot of wonderful growth happening over the summer with these programs. My goal is that we also find a way to really transition Boston to fully be a winter city. I grew up in an environment that, in Chicago, was you just, the snow is the snow, the cold is the cold, and I think we need to do a lot more to make it so that people have outdoor spaces that are, can have a heat lamp or opportunities still to get together and take advantage of what it means in all seasons, including in the winter, and to make it a city where our young people feel comfortable outdoors all throughout the year.
Rich, thanks. Since you mentioned White Stadium, you have a minute left. We had the 3 women who were behind the National Women's Soccer League bringing it to Boston, which is great. It's going to be in White Stadium. The city's doing tens of millions of dollars. They're throwing in millions of dollars. It sounds like a lot of wonderful things are going to be developed there that were in need. But there's a story, I think it was in the Globe, my apologies, I don't have it in front of me, saying that the high school football teams, 7 or 10, whatever there are going to be precluded from using it. What happens to them?
We are going to ensure that every possible use that has been at White Stadium has a space in the city. The vast majority of those uses will stay at White Stadium and have an enhanced opportunity. Football will be able to play after the soccer season is over, and so we'll still have the kind of marquee end-of-year championship games there, and hope to then, give them the chance to play in this amazing world-class stadium for that opportunity. But for practices and for some of those other spaces, we are going to look to renovate other fields and make those available.
Can I keep you 45 seconds extra and just ask you one last question? We asked the attorney. You were 4 years old when Carol Stewart was killed, and obviously the Globe has done 2 years of research. We had Adrian Walker on the other day, one of the principal reporters, and he's doing the podcast. You were obviously a kid. You didn't live here at the time. You mentioned Chicago. What as the mayor and as somebody who has grown here, what's your takeaway? What's your takeaway from the series? It
can be easy to say, oh, it's, we're a totally different city now, everything looks different, and we had a couple calls about Mission Hill that were not at all about public safety. It was actually about development and traffic and too many people being in there. I would just say that Boston's history still lives with us very much. It's very much alive, and all you have to do is have any number of small conversations with Bostonians who were in Boston at that period, particularly in our Black and brown communities, not just in Mission Hill, but throughout the city, to still feel the hurt, the pain, the trauma of that experience. I think the series does a good job. I finally got to catch up and now watch both of the episodes that came out and read through the entire series. And it does a good job of showing how this was, in fact, a commentary of how fractured and barely holding it together, that sort of racial dynamics and the peace that maybe was, the slowing of the outright violence leading up to that, coming off of busing and so much that the city lived through in so many different ways. It was very tenuous, and that incident was much more than just about the police report and what happened. I mean, it's one family's trauma that snowballed into an entire city's trauma that we still very much feel today. And so there has been tremendous progress. I am very grateful to be in an administration and a city and a community that I hope we would see multiple checkpoints where something like that would not happen again. And there have been specific legal changes and leadership changes. But we need to remember what our history has been and how much it is still impacting our residents today.
Mayor Wu, can't thank you enough for your time. We really
thank
appreciate
you very
it.
much.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays,
We have
everything
been
you too.
speaking with the Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. Thank you very, very much for your time. Coming up, 2 Rachels and some Hanukkah cheer. The good folks from Mamalas Deli join us at the library next. Yes, Jim, lots of good free food. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Excuse me, welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I was eating and Marjorie was going to rescue me and it's too late, whatever. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. Joining us now during the Hanukkah season are Rachel Miller-Munzer and Rachel Sundit, 2 of the seven owners of the fabulous Mamalas Delicatessen. Miller-Munzer is CEO and Chief Restaurant Officer. They own other places too. We'll get to that in a minute. Sundit is the owner and pastry chef, and much more importantly, taught Marjorie, me, and a dozen other people how to make potato latkes.
That's right.
About a week or 2 ago. It was fabulous. Rachel, it's great to see you both. Thanks so much for being here.
Not only was it fabulous, but I ate those latkes for another 3 days. You just could kind of warm them up. They weren't as great as they were right fresh, but they were like 98% there, and it was absolutely a wonderful treat because I don't really cook very well. So Jim wanted me, a good Jewish boy that he is, wanted me to start this with a very basic question, which is, what's Hanukkah?
Go ahead.
We're supposed to know that? I saw a meme on Facebook the other day that said, imagine your cell phone is at 10% and then it lasts for 8 days. That's Hanukkah.
Excellent. I love that.
That was the miracle that when
the miracle of
the oil
that lasted for 8 days.
So you did know.
Yeah.
Nicely done there, Rachel.
Why don't you say what you always say at this juncture?
What is it?
That you were graduated first in your bar mitzvah class.
I'm not going to say it today, Marjorie. I don't
already
need
told
to.
us that.
He's already told you that. Oh, okay.
They knew that already.
Mm-hmm.
So can we? It's Hanukkah. I think it's day 6 or something. This is obviously a tough year to be celebrating for obvious reasons, October 7th and beyond. How has that affected in this country, Rachel Sundit, the celebration of Hanukkah, do you think?
You know, I think at least what we've been experiencing in the deli is that everybody's really going big for Hanukkah this year. I think there's been, so much darkness and so much sadness and suffering the past many weeks, and people are just looking for something to bring some light. And, it's a great opportunity to light candles, to be together, to kind of celebrate joy and be happy.
Have you, Rachel, it's suffered any blow? I mean, I just drove by last night, proudly Jewish, it says, and a big sign there. Has there been any blowback? We were talking to Corby Cumming yesterday about Chef Solomonov, who we had on from Philadelphia, who owns Goldie's there, where there have been demonstrations, anti-Semitic slurs and slogans leveled at him, even though he supports a two-state solution. He supports self-determination for Palestinians. Have you suffered through any of this?
We have not. I mean, we've not overtly suffered. I think internally we've suffered because it's felt very challenging to be a Jewish business at this juncture. But very thankfully, we haven't had any attacks or any blowback.
Did you think twice before putting the sign up in the window?
Twice?
You know, our
Twice?
group of
Are you
7,
kidding me?
we thought 7,200 times. It was a really hard conversation, and a number of conversations that we had. Just trying to figure out the line of we're a business, but we are a Jewish business, and so where's the line of what we are going to say publicly and what we're experiencing as Jewish people right now?
You know what I think is very upsetting about this time, too? You have these moments, Barack Obama gets elected president, racism is all over, and then things go along rather placidly in the world, and you think, well, anti-Semitism, that's so yesterday. And then this Hamas massacre, tragedy comes along, and the fighting in Gaza, and you see something that, I'm not Jewish, but you can feel this all around you among my Jewish friends, this real trauma. Even if you don't know anybody in Israel and you're not personally close to anybody that was affected.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true, and I think that's certainly what I have gone through, because you grow up learning about the Holocaust, and everybody kind of goes through those lessons. And as a young Jewish girl, I read Diary of Anne Frank and imagined myself in those positions, but it was a very different thing to learn about those kind of things, to be able to say that happened then, and this is an entirely different time, and I can learn about those horrors because I know it could not be possible now. And I think what's been so upsetting is just that realization that, oh no, it's not that those feelings are gone forever, it's just that they've been simmering under the surface, waiting to maybe come out again. And I think that is probably the biggest impetus that made us really feel like we wanted to say something, and to be able to at least, remind the community that we're a place that is positively Jewish, and we're going to celebrate the traditions and the food and the culture, and we're going to welcome everybody into our doors and just want to be a place that feels good.
Okay, you're also my favorite deli. Let's get to that if we can. Rachel Miller-Munzer. So you started in Kendall Square, which is near where I live.
Yes.
Then you you added Brookline.
To where I
where
live. They did that in a coordination. I thought that was nice. Each side of the Boston Public Radio team,
So what's the state of the Mamalas empire as of now? There are a lot of things. What's going on?
Taking over.
We then went into downtown Boston to the High Street Place Food Hall, where we operate a tiny little kiosk. And we're currently working to get a production kitchen. Right now, we produce everything out of our Cambridge location. Rachel and her bakery team are in the basement, outgrown of the space. So we're trying to move production out of Cambridge, and then that will enable us for a little more growth.
And you do pop-up stuff, right? I mean, I read, you're making a face at me, no?
Oh, pop-ups.
I don't mean pop-up. Well, I call them
suburban,
Yeah,
suburban
you go out
pickups.
into places where you don't Rachel Sunday.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that?
Well, so that came out of the pandemic. I live out in Weston, and we were trying to be creative, figuring out how to reach people. And so we thought, why not drive out to different neighborhoods around in the surrounding area. So we kind of still do that. Mostly we try to coordinate along with holidays or special occasions where people would be excited to pick up food. But so this week tomorrow we'll be in Concord, and then on Thursday we're in Andover, and it's there's a section of our menu in the Cambridge ordering site that says suburban pickups.
Yeah.
And so you schedule your order and you just add that. It's like a $0 menu item. So you add that location where you want to pick up, and place your pre-order, and then we'll bring it out and you pick it up.
Okay, so there's Mamalas at all these locations. There's State Park across the street, 10th anniversary coming up, I think this weekend. You've got Vincent's also, all within a whatever. I asked Rachel, the other Rachel, as in the son, this question when Marjorie and I were learning how to make latkes, and she evaded the question. So I asked you, Rachel, I can't imagine any business run by 7 people. Now, some are married to each other and some are not. And so this is years of collaborative stuff. Tell us the true inside story of 7 people trying to collaborate.
It's terrible. We all hate each other.
It's gotta
Juicy gossip.
It is hard, right?
It's challenging. We all admit it. It's been, we came together as this group in 2016, which is 7 years ago, 7+ years ago. And I think one thing that I'm really proud of is that we're all still together and we all respect each other. And on Sunday, one of our business partners, John, plays the French horn with the New England Philharmonic. Oh. And they do a children's concert every year, which is really lovely. And we were all there with our families.
Oh, that's pretty great,
Rachel's kid almost jumped over the balcony. It was really exciting.
That's really good.
One of them every year. Yeah.
But it's good. You know, it's built on respect, and it definitely is not easy. We're actually working with an executive coach right now, which has been life-changing for us. And she's helping us do some restructuring within the partnership and get more focused and be able to really functionally move forward.
Do you think she can help me and Marjorie after she's done with you?
Absolutely.
What is the executive function person? Maybe I need that. I think I could use
She's an executive coach.
Executive coach. Okay.
I looked up. I have information on executive functioning.
Oh,
well,
tell me after. Tell me that before you go. Do you have a vote? If it's 7 people, is it like 4-3, 5-2, or do you have to come to a consensus, or stay all night till everybody agrees?
For the most part, we agree, which is
that's good.
I mean, I think part of our challenge has been that we are, Rachel Sundet has really pushed on this issue that we're a little bit too nice to each other.
Oh, okay.
And so sometimes it's hard to move forward. Part of this,
I hate this nice stuff.
Well, part of the restructuring is that they all gave me a vote of confidence that I'm taking the reins as CEO, which is big for me, and so we're going to really try to be a little bit more decisive and move things forward.
Okay, truth be told, we don't care about your problems, but it's very nice you're describing them. What kind of food did you bring? Describe the kind of incredible stuff that you guys make and sell at this joint, please.
I'll unwrap and you describe.
That
okay,
sounds
go ahead,
great.
Rachel.
Well, Hanukkah donuts, I understand.
Yes.
Well, let's hear.
I think that's what I feel most excited to talk about
Okay,
because
I'm very
that's what
excited
I've
to open this because
been
it
doing.
smells so good.
And those aren't even the donuts; those are the latkes.
Okay.
Well, so my bakery team is an incredible group of people. We've all been pulling together to make soufganiot, which are the traditional jelly donuts that you eat at Hanukkah. So we've been making ones filled with raspberry jam and then also ones filled with chocolate cream. And we've been, I like your enthusiasm. I really do.
I have a sweet tooth.
Well, good. So we have them right here. Rachel will take them out of the box.
Ooh, boy.
You have to share them with your producers and everybody.
We'll do that. Thank you, Rachel. Go ahead.
So we've been making Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We made just shy of 500 each day, and Thursday and Friday we opened the doors and we're already sold out.
Wait. She says we. When she says we, it's she and 1 or 2 other of her pastry people.
Well, but it's because everybody is. It really is such a team. It's such a team sport. This whole holiday. Just
now we're
because,
talking here.
You know, we're frying them in the morning, but then there's also making the dough for the next day and shaping the donuts to get ready for the next day, and making sure that we have the filling made, and then not to mention trying our best to not run out of all of
raspberry
the other
chocolate
stuff that we make.
What do you think? Raspberry or chocolate?
Do you want me to cut it? You can
No,
have these. Oh, I like the raspberry.
You like the raspberry? Okay, I'll go with that. I'll go with that
And
one right
when
here.
you're
Thank
done
you.
taking care of Marjorie there, what I would suggest, since
Thank
you're
you.
here to
Ladies
promote
first.
your fabulous restaurant, you should hold it at an angle. Can
I
we get
tried.
the camera on
I
the
tried,
box
but nobody was paying
of these
attention.
incredible looking, a little more angle there. Oh my God, they are gorgeous.
How's
and
that?
what are the fillings in those things again?
So the raspberry jam is a really
I'll get there in a minute.
delicious
Thank you.
raspberry jam that's made by AG Campbell Farm, and their sister company is called Fruitations, and they're a local women-owned company that makes really, really great jam. So it's raspberries. It just is really bright and lovely. And then the chocolate custard is sort of like kind of like a chocolate pudding that also has whipped cream folded into
What's
it.
the deal? Let's hear.
It's It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I think I have to have a chocolate one, too. And
Okay,
take it home.
well,
You need a napkin.
do we have a knife, Jamie? Can we get a knife?
I have a knife.
for
I
me,
have
Jim.
a knife.
Oh, we have a knife. Okay, I'll do that. Okay.
Come prepared.
I'll give you half of my raspberry if you want it, Jim.
You know, I think at least Rachel, who I met first, Miller Munzer, who I met before I met you many years ago, is tired of this question, but I'll ask anyway. I lived in New York City for 15 years, and you almost could not turn a corner, that's from Marjorie, and not find a Jewish delicatessen. And I moved here, I don't know, 30-some years ago.
Look at how tiny that is. That's not a half.
Well, there's more coming.
That's a fifth.
Well, there are a lot of good delis here. They're not plentiful, like I would assume in the community. There are a lot of Jewish people. There are a lot of people who love Jewish deli food. Why, Rachel, why are there not more in this community?
Now's the time for your cost of food ingredients.
Oh.
Is that what it is? Is that the answer?
Yes, the cost of food ingredients is rising. Well, that is true. I think it was, delis were popular for many, many years, and then it became very expensive to run, and it became less fashionable to, people have this perception of like all a deli is corned beef, fatty corned beef and pastrami and, all that. And it costs a lot to run a deli. Meat's expensive, fish is expensive, and so they started to go out of business. And then some, not so smart people came in and thought that they would open one.
7 of them in particular.
Yeah.
So can you explain, for people who don't hang out at Jewish delis like I do, explain Rachel something, like give us the broad spectrum.
And
of
the
things
Rachel
you guys...
sandwich, right? There's a Rachel sandwich I have bought many, many times. Which Rachel is it named for?
It has nothing to do with that,
Yeah, it's not
Marjorie.
named after
come
us.
on.
We just happen to also
my
be named
God.
Rachel. Yeah. That's
What do you think?
actually-
Their other partner is Reuben? Is that what you're going to say
I
next?
thought perhaps
wait, let me just
the
say-
George sandwich,
Let me
the
just
Bruce
say one
is spectacular. You had
One
that?
thing quickly. We had one of our cooks at the kitchen in Cambridge was pregnant. She recently gave birth to twins.
Congratulations.
Reuben and Rachel,
all the
don't tell me.
all the girls in the kitchen said, "You have to name them Reuben and Rachel." She didn't, but it would have been good.
Hey, wait, and why don't you explain what Reuben and Rachel are for the uninitiated, then tell us what else you sell at your joint.
Right. Okay. So Reuben is traditionally corned beef, sauerkraut, Swiss cheese, Russian dressing on rye, pressed or griddled, something like that. And then Rachel is traditionally with pastrami and has coleslaw instead of sauerkraut. Now, at the deli, you can get your Reuben or Rachel with turkey, or you can also get a pastrami Reuben or a corned beef Rachel. I mean, anything. We'll make it whatever you want.
So
much.
is Rachel some biblical thing, or why is it? What's it named for, Rachel?
It's just a I don't know, a classic deli name.
I didn't know that. I guess I haven't been in enough delis, Jim. I should have spent more time hanging around with you.
That's okay. You're learning now. It's all
Okay.
good. Worse things have happened than thinking that we had a sandwich named after us.
I thought after I met you, it was named after one of you. So there you go.
This chocolate thing is
great.
ridiculous. So I interrupted you.
Yeah.
What else? What are the other kinds of things that you, a Jewish deli like yours, serves people?
Well, so we're, I think, probably most known for the pastrami and the corned beef sandwiches, but we also make our bagels in-house every morning with my incredible bakery team. And I do happen to think they are really excellent. So we have bagels, all kinds of bagel sandwiches, like the classic Novolux, schmear, that kind of thing. And then whitefish, chopped liver.
Whitefish salad is insane, by the way. Matzo ball soup
Matzo ball soup,
insane.
latkes, blintzes, knish. These are all, I think, to your earlier question, a lot of this food is like, I don't know, it's like not flashy, or it's not like super attention grabbing, and it takes a lot of time and labor and effort to make it all. And so I think the balance of all that is, it's like a lot of people, and maybe rightly so, find our restaurant expensive. And the challenge is how much can you charge for a sandwich, but how much goes into that sandwich, and how much labor and how much, nice ingredients are we putting in, and the kind of dollar value that goes along with that.
Let me stay with you, Rachel. The most important question, I think, what does the staff say?
They looked up online and said the Rachel is attributed to an 1871 song, Reuben and Rachel, a variant of a Reuben sandwich. often sung in the playgrounds as Reuben, Reuben. I've been thinking, what
Oh, I
in the
know
world?
that song. So do I. That comes
What in
from
the world
there.
you've been drinking smells like whiskey, tastes like wine. Oh
No, I
my
didn't
gosh,
sing it
it's
that way.
turpentine.
Okay, there you are. So, Rachel, son, the question on everybody's mind, I'm sure, is what's it like having both parents be shrinks?
Oh, Derek loves it when you bring him up on the radio,
we know
Jim.
both your parents,
Yeah.
and they're both spectacular people.
Agree.
And one is the leader of one of our favorite organizations, Silent
Silent
Spring
Spring,
Institute,
yep.
where you were kind enough to auction off this Lockheed class that we. What's it like having two shrinks as parents?
I think it's really great. You know, I mean, I think we talk about a lot of things.
You do?
Yeah. I think we try to be, really, I think, open and honest.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that goes back to what
7?
Rachel was saying about, like, it's, I think it's important to be able to talk about your feelings and, what's going on in your brain. And it is, I think, we live with my parents and my 3 kids. So I think, I welcome the adult support in, like, raising children is a real, it's a group effort, big time. So having other people that are, able to talk about what's going on, I think is
That's a very
good.
healthy answer. Do you buy that for a second, Rachel, or not? I didn't think so. Okay.
I mean,
that's fine. What else did you bring before you go? Tell people what else is here.
we buy you some snacks.
Okay.
Well,
but,
we should
you already
definitely
ate
talk
lunch.
about the latkes.
Oh, talk about
the
latkes.
latkes.
Go ahead.
And I
They
thought
were
this was
not-
a good Hanukkah.
What is that?
Hanukkah treat
What
also
is it?
since it's fried.
It's gribbinus. Does
Who?
anybody know what gribbinus
I
is?
do not. What is it?
Okay, so gribbinus are
make
fried
you try
chicken
them.
skins. Now,
Fried? I never even
traditionally,
heard of that.
yeah. So traditionally, it's kind of like a
you.
chicharron, but
Thank you.
No, it's not
I knew
all
that.
for you. Don't thank you.
Okay,
You
I-
take
I-
one and you hand it back.
Okay, I'll take
Okay,
one
I'll
and
take
hand
one
it
out
back.
here.
There we go.
Wait, what
One
is
and hand
this
it back.
again?
So most traditionally, the way that it's made is the chicken skins are cooked in a pot with onions, and you slowly cook it so that the fat renders out of the skin, and then it kind of fries in the chicken fat.
Yep.
Now these ones we roast our chicken thighs for our soup, and then we pull off the skins and we fry them in the deep fryer because that gets them really crispy and super delicious. And then we put our pickle salt.
Oh my God, it's
on top.
unbelievable.
You know what,
Yeah.
though? It wasn't that hard to make those latkes as I thought it would be.
Right.
I mean, it really, you made them, I made them, and they were very edible and they were delicious.
They were better than edible.
They were
actually
they were
delicious.
great. They were great. And as I said, they lasted for days, too.
Right.
So it's not that hard. Tell people how you do it.
Well, I was going to say, so latkes are the most traditional
Latkes,
thing.
whoops.
You can say laki,
Anyway,
latke.
okay.
You say tomato, I say tomato.
Okay.
Exactly. Thank you.
And so basically, they're the most sort of traditional for Hanukkah. We sell them all year round at the deli. But I was going to say, for anybody who feels apprehensive, Tyler and I did make a video, how to make latkes.
Where's that?
It's on YouTube. There's a link in our Instagram
Great.
LinkedIn profile. So anybody that wants a little bit of coaching can tune in to that. But it is really easy, and our recipe is just, as you guys learned, just potatoes and onions and eggs and some salt and pepper,
Fabulous.
and then you fry them.
Now, in terms of these fried chicken skins, does it come with an EMT, or you have to bring your own EMT?
That part,
Oh my
that part
God.
is you have to provide.
It's only
is
the
deadly.
EMT comes when you dip it in the chopped liver.
Chopped liver's great
Yeah,
too.
the shop, we ate a lot of that, too, the night we were over there.
What's the website for Mamalas?
So it's www.mamalas.com, and that's MAMALEHS. And that's where you can find all kinds of the information about where to order. We also do nationwide shipping.
You do?
Yep. So we have some food packages and plenty of good Pickles the Great T-shirts and merchandise and things that will ship around. And one thing that we should mention too, just about Hanukkah before we wrap up, I don't know if that's where we're headed.
That
but,
is where we're headed.
Okay, great. It's just that our sister restaurant, Vincent's, is hosting a special Hanukkah dinner tonight.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, and so the chef Philip there, he's prepared 5 with a little extras courses of really excellent, delicious food. So he's got like latke tasting, and he's making blintzes and brisket, and there are little sufganiyot bites for the end, and gelt that our pastry chef at Mamalas, Chelsea Cantor, made yesterday with beautiful.
And State Park 10th anniversary. Check
Yes.
that out too.
Coming
That's
this
this weekend as
Yes.
well. Happy
Yeah.
Hanukkah to you
Thank
and
you.
all.
Well, thank
and I
you.
have to say hi to my mom and dad.
Where are
who
your
came
mother
out.
and
my
father?
goodness.
Hey there, mother and father.
great to see.
They're not shrinks, are they? I want to be
no,
clear.
they're not. They need shrinks.
They need shrinks.
No offense.
Are you okay with that? Or comment? Or you're okay? 2 thumbs up. Well, sort of thumbs up. Nice to have you both.
Thank you very
and
much.
Great to see you both.
Yeah,
Thanks.
pleasure to see you again. I'm very glad you're in my neighborhood. It's a
Mama's
wonderful
a great
thing.
place. Check it out.
We've been speaking
Good
with
to see you,
Rachel Miller-Munzer and Rachel Sundett of the fabulous Mamalas Delicatessens. Miller-Munzer is CEO and Chief Restaurant Officer. Sundett is owner and pastry chef. Rachel, thank you very,
Food's
very much
great.
for coming
Thank
in.
you. It was fabulous.
Thank you.
Good to see
Happy
you both.
Hanukkah. Thanks.
Coming up, back by popular demand, mostly because Jim wanted to do it yet again.
Yet again.
We're going to do our annual BPR tipping segment. To whom in your life do you give a seasonal tip? Is cash still king? How about a six-pack? Whom to tip and how much? That is next on Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. And Jim will claim again that he chases the guys that collect the trash down the street with a $20 bill. No one believes him. I'd like to see someone in Cambridge who's actually seen that happen. In any case, the number is 877-301-8970 if you want to call us or text us. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. We are streaming at youtube.com, facebook.com/GBH News and youtube.com/GBH News.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm just eating one of those chocolate-filled donuts.
Yeah,
from
they're
Mama's.
great. They're great.
Oh, my God. Broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. This is one of our annual standbys, very important to people. Marjorie will mock it, of course, because this is one of the areas where I have great expertise.
Yep.
Tipping people around the holidays. Now, according to data from Toast, restaurant tips, this has nothing to do with Christmas, we thought we'd throw it in anyway, have dropped below the industry standard of 20%. Maybe because we're also now expected to tip the barista, even your landlord, at least in this particularly onerous TikTok video from two guys take on real estate.
Thanks for paying your rent this month. Go ahead and sign here. It's just going to ask you a couple of questions.
A tip? I'm not tipping my landlord.
So you'll tip a barista who pours overpriced coffee into a cup, but not the guy who's on call 24/7 to make sure you have a safe home.
I'm not tipping you. This isn't a restaurant.
Okay, so you'll tip an extra 25% for somebody to carry you a basket of chicken wings, but you won't tip someone who responds for after-hours emergency calls? Yep.
It's not only not a restaurant, it's not funny. So let's get to holiday season tipping. Are you tipping, for example, the hairdresser, the maintenance person, the barista, the librarian, the mail carrier, the teacher, maybe your favorite NPR host. The number is 877-301-8970. What are your questions around holiday tipping? And Marjorie and I, at least I, am here to answer those questions. Now, Marjorie, even though you ridicule me,
yeah, I do.
Would you not say in the 24 years we've been doing this segment, have you not learned a lot about how to treat your preferred service providers at the holidays?
You claim to be tipping everybody, Jim. And
I do.
You told me it's shameful that I don't.
It's shameful.
But you know something? There's a story here that talks about tipping your lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me? You're going to give a tip to your lawyer? Those of you who are getting divorced or in the middle of some real estate transaction who are paying hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to your lawyer already? I don't think so. Have you tipped your lawyer in your various
yeah, you give them a bottle of champagne if they've served you well.
Oh,
Absolutely,
okay.
you do.
All right, a bottle of champagne.
By the way, the whole notion is it's expressing gratitude for somebody who has served you well. If your lawyer served you well, fine. Do you tip your mail carrier?
Yes, I do.
Why? Is that you didn't look me in the eyes when you said that?
No, I've been shamed into it.
What do you give your mail carrier? By the way, you're not supposed to give cash or more than $20. It's a violation of law.
$20.
You're not supposed to do that.
Well, no, if it's
you're not supposed to give cash.
Oh, well, that's too late. I'm doing it.
Okay, you screwed up anyway. $50 cash in violation of law. By the way,
20.
No, I'm saying 50
is
what you should be giving.
$50?
I know it's a lot of money.
Yeah. Well,
but
you know
want
what they say?
What happened to your mail carrier? What happened to your mail a couple of years ago because you didn't tip your mail carrier?
Okay, this had nothing to do with tipping my mail carrier.
That's what you say. What happened?
But this was a kind of a weird story. This had to be at least 15 years ago.
Okay, what happened?
You know, when you still used to get all your bills in the mail, you know, from Filene's or wherever you were buying your stuff.
Yes.
And I remember they were getting calls from places and saying, you haven't paid your bill.
Exactly.
And I said, well, I haven't gotten a bill. And they said, yes, you did. We sent it out, and they told me it said, and I thought I lost it. Well, I was reading the Boston Globe one day, and there was a Metro front story about my mailman. And you know what my mailman had been doing, Jim?
What's that?
He had been piling up the mail that was supposed to go to his customers in his home.
That's what I read.
Floor to ceiling, 10 feet high, stacks of mail all up and down the street where I lived, and none of us were getting our mail for quite some time. And the mailman died in a sea of envelopes.
Okay, now let me, if I may, Marjorie conveniently left out half the story from the Boston Globe. What's the element you left out?
The neighborhood wasn't tipping him enough.
No, exactly. The mail that he had in his apartment was only from people who failed to tip him at Christmas.
Okay.
And those who did got their mail. Now,
something very important, though,
what
to
is
point out,
that?
because you would have everybody tipping more than they can possibly afford. It says it has to go
mail
along
carrier is a pretty important
with
job
your
in horrible
budget.
weather.
Well, lots of things
obviously
are
has to go with your
important.
budget, yeah.
Teachers, babysitters,
Do you tip the teachers?
daycare.
Do you tip the teachers?
I used to write them a note and give them, make them bread.
Oh, they love that, by the way. They
did.
love a piece
They
of
did.
bread and a
piece
handwritten
of bread.
note.
I made the banana bread and wrapped it up. I
made
did.
that?
Well, I bake, Jim. I do bake. I'm
You
not
do
much of a
bake.
cook,
Actually,
but I
you're
do
a decent baker.
Yeah, and I would make banana bread, write
really?
them a note about how much they meant to my kid, even if they weren't meaning much to my kid. That's what I did to my teacher. But you have to stay within your budget because a lot of people cannot afford, listen to this, to give your au pair or your nanny 1 to 2 weeks pay. A lot of people can't even afford the week
Your
pay
hair
they
is
have
looking
to
really
give.
good. How much you pay your hairdresser?
I'm guilt-tripped into it. I have to pay
Now, how
them
much you pay her?
the price of what it
Or
usually
him?
costs to get my hair done.
Exactly. Is that a reasonable
Actually,
thing?
not quite, because it's become so expensive to get your hair cut
You
and
don't
colored.
give-
I don't give them the whole thing. You know how much it costs to get your hair cut and colored? Men don't know this because it
We
doesn't
don't
cost
know
you
that,
money.
yeah.
You can pay $200. You can pay $250.
How about the
you can
person
pay
who cleans your house?
$300.
How about the person who cleans your house?
Would you stop asking me all these
Well,
questions?
because you're
How about
obviously
you?
embarrassed by the answer.
I give the person that cleans the house the equivalent of 1 week.
you don't.
I do.
You
It's
don't.
$145. I give them $145 extra.
$145?
Yeah, because that's how much
Wow.
it costs me to have them clean the house. How about you?
What?
You claim that you are waiting for the people to come pick up your garbage cans in Cambridge.
That's great.
And
Sanitation
standing out
workers.
there with cash for the ball.
I have last
no one
year.
believes that,
no, I
Jim.
want to tell you the truth. So, it's true. Last year I forgot.
Yeah.
I ran down Inman Street naked till I caught up with the sanitation workers.
Okay.
By the way, what you can do is you can tape an envelope with a small gratuity at Christmas time under the lids.
Yeah, well, I
of your
tried that
garbage
one year,
cans.
and they left it there. They didn't even know
They
it was
did? Well,
there.
there
No,
you go.
because they don't expect. They don't expect it.
Okay, so what?
And you know, this is what people are asking. Here's one: how can anybody afford to tip anything in the years of Bidenomics? Bidenomics is not going over well for the general public.
Well, actually, except things are getting a hell of a lot better unless you watch Fox News.
Listen to this, Andy from Yarmouthport. I gave my letter carrier a pint jar of honey from my bees. That's pretty good.
That's not horrible, no.
Yeah.
You're supposed to limit the gifts theoretically to your mail carrier to $20
Oh my
value,
God.
but nobody
Oh my
cares.
God.
What?
Someone just texted me and said that they honored the mailman who died with a bench in Linden Park.
Really?
Yeah, that was what street I used to live on, Linden
And you know what
Street.
they did afterwards? They put all the mail on that bench. It was no one could sit on. Do you mind if we take some calls? Because I am basically your answer person.
We just
I
got
guess we do mind.
We just got a text from a mail
Text,
carrier.
it's called, yeah.
It says, don't give your carrier more than $20 in cash. We get cash all the time, so please stop saying that year after year after year. The mail carriers are happy to get cash, Jim.
No, I said
Discreetly,
exactly. No,
very discreetly.
I'm telling you exactly. No one's going to know. You just put it in an envelope. They'll pick it up. No one's going to know the difference. That is. Would you agree? It's one of the hardest jobs, most stressful jobs. Not only because of dogs and things like that, horrible weather. They've got to deliver the mail. How about that?
That's absolutely
Okay,
true.
fine.
It's not easy to be a mail person. Although I think you'd be in pretty good shape walking around all day long. 877-301-8970. What do you think? Whom do you tip? Whom do you not tip? How much do you tip? Jeff in Boston, thank you
Jeff,
for calling.
how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
I think we're fine. Go ahead. What's your question or comment or something? What is it?
Well, no, it's just a statement. I'm a process server. When people got to go to court, I bring them the legal documents.
Yeah.
And I've never gotten a tip.
Well, I can't imagine why that is, actually.
I don't know. I mean, in divorce cases, I've had people be joyous about getting their divorce papers, but I've never gotten the cash. So I have to go to lawyers.
Well, you know what you should do? You know, like how the newspaper delivery person, when we used to get actual newspapers, would leave a little envelope for you, and the next week they pick it up. Just include with a summons a little envelope with your address in it, and people can send you a check, Jeff. What do you think?
Okay, give me your address, Jim.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's a good one. Jeff, that's a pretty good
Jim.
one. Thank you. What?
Your dehumidifier serviceman has just texted.
What do you say?
Never been tipped.
Actually, I haven't tipped him. That's true. I forgot.
Oh, we like
Yeah.
other people. We like other people who do service at Jim's house to tip to.
By the way,
text
can
in.
I tell you this? I'm pretty good humored about these. This is like libelous. Listen to what Nicole, our coworker, wrote. Whenever Jim grabs your lunch at the BPL, which he did today, I think Zoe or Jamie
It's
did.
Jamie.
I never see you tip him, Jim.
That's a good point.
The way we tip him, Nicole, is we allow him to keep his job. So that is actually the greatest gratuity one can ever give another human being.
Oh.
You with me, Jamie? Yes or no? Thank you. I appreciate it.
We have another person who
What?
seems to be very familiar with your neighborhood, Jim. Woody, the UPS driver.
Yeah.
He wants to know, how much do you tip him? He's asking, he says, for a friend.
If, in all seriousness, if you want an honest answer, if you have the same UPS driver all year round, which most of us do, then the answer is you should give him or her something. Do you disagree with that, by the way?
I just think it's often difficult to be there at the right moment when the UPS driver arrives.
Yeah, well, maybe you can leave a note. You know
or-
what you do? You leave a note on your door that says UPS driver on it.
Okay.
And you leave him or her, them, something, and you take care of them. There you go. Your excuses are feeble, if I may say.
Listen to this. I went to the movies last night, and
Yeah.
the man in front of me tipped $2 to the guy from whom he bought the $12 ticket.
Exactly.
What do you think?
They
Maybe that
got
was
it.
a special Hanukkah Christmas.
They
kind
have
of thing.
family, too. Do you know what I mean? Let's go to Patrick and Medford.
Here's somebody wants to know, how do you tip your garbage recycle person when they drive trucks that have robotic arms that picks up the cans and dumps the contents onto their trucks? Jim, of course, goes out and waves down the truck as they're coming down the street.
You communicate with a robot with your phone.
Okay.
That is.
Okay.
By the way, everybody, including you, have an excuse for not tipping somebody. Instead of having an excuse, try to figure out a way to tip someone, Marjorie.
I guess you haven't figured out how to tip the dehumidifier, man, have you, Jim?
This year I will be doing that.
Do you have humidifier problems over there at
I
Cambridge?
have. The repair person has been excellent on the dehumidifiers.
Okay.
Patrick and Medford, finally, you're on the show. Hello there.
Hi, yeah. First time caller.
Oh, my God. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm out delivering right now, and I say tip as many people as you can. It's a lost art, and you'd be shocked, especially with delivery, how many people just don't tip at all for long distance or.
What do you deliver? Who you deliver for there, Patrick?
DoorDash, actually, and then liquor stores as well.
Okay, and what percentage of people tip you and what percentage do not?
I'm going to say about 50, 60%. Not about 60.
That's
Patrick,
disgraceful.
Patrick,
That's really.
I'm wondering, I've never done DoorDash. If you do DoorDash, does the person tip you with cash at the door, or do they put it on the online order? What is the correct thing to do?
They can put it. Most put it in the app. Some do tip for different alcohol deliveries, but you can put it in the app. But honestly, cash at the door is maybe better. But
Much better. But if they put it in the app, do you get it or not?
Yeah, I get 100% of the tip.
Oh,
but
good.
I think all the apps, all the gig companies take that into consideration when they pay their drivers. To be honest.
Yeah.
If they see it's a tip, they'll cut the pay. But that's
really
it makes.
Give them cash. Well, that's a reason they should give you cash, obviously, so the employer does the app people don't know, and then that's the solution. Patrick, happy Christmas, and he's speaking for all delivery people. Be kind.
Listen to this. This is a hostile text.
What is it?
Aimed at me.
What is it?
Homemade baked goods are great, but if I was your kid's teacher, banana bread would go straight in the trash.
I'm with you. I'm with that
Wow.
person. The least you should do, you live in Brookline, right?
Yep.
Least you should do is like a trip for two to Aruba, I would say.
Well, there were some people in the class who were very well-heeled, who...
Giving people trips?
No, they had houses that they would give people. Yeah, you could go to my house and wherever it was for a week. At the time, I had my elementary school kids, so the teachers were making more than me, Jim, so I felt they should be tipping
That's
me,
a very
actually.
good point. Do you want to hear a little bit from Larry David? 'Cause
Sure.
No matter what topic we discussed that as a cultural aspect, Curb Your Enthusiasm addressed it. Here he is, Larry David, arguing with a waiter about leaving an additional tip.
Well, there is an 18% tip included. Generally, I do leave an additional tip, but you know what? I'm kind of protesting the additional tip. I don't care for it.
You're protesting?
Yes. Let them charge me 20%. Let them charge me 25%. I'd rather be charged a 30% tip included than have to add up 18% to 20% to 25, whatever.
That's not that much, man. It's 2%.
It's hard to get to 2%.
I don't know. 1%, you just move the decimal place 2 spots.
Okay, you have a system. I don't have a system to get to 2%. Don't make me do math at the table.
So you're protesting math?
I'm protesting math, exactly.
877-301-8970.
We asked Corby Kummer about this yesterday.
We
Because
did?
if you notice, there are places now that you go to and they will have an 18% service fee.
we discussed that with him, yeah.
So a lot of people, they tip 20%, 25%.
Yeah.
So Corby says, in addition to the 18% service fee, you're supposed to tip an extra 20%.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
So that's $40.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Well, if it's a $100 bill.
Is that what you think you should be doing?
No, I said it's a lot.
It's a lot?
That's a lot. I
So
agree.
what is
I
your-
admire Corby for
What is your procedure for the 18% service
it depends.
charge?
If they're really good, you probably add 10 plus.
Okay.
And if they're okay, you should add at least 5 plus. But that's not a Christmas thing, by the way.
It's not a Christmas thing.
Now,
It's
let
a
me ask you a
tipping
question.
thing.
Do you go to any restaurant regularly? Like regularly?
Jim, I don't go anywhere really. You know that.
Okay, well, I guess that solves.
I have a very dull
that.
life.
You don't have to worry about.
Katie in the car. Thank you for
Katie in the
calling.
car. What's your deal?
You're welcome. I was just calling to say that I think we have to add the conversation that tipping comes from someplace. And when slaves were freed, we decided we didn't want to pay black people an equal wage. So they were like, here, have this tiny amount of money, and then if people like your service, they can give you more. And that's where tipping came from in this country.
Oh, okay.
So that means we should keep doing it, or
No,
we shouldn't
she means
keep
it's a
doing it?
crappy. You mean it's a crappy system, a way to pay people?
It's a crappy system.
Yeah, but
exactly.
Katie, do you know? We should have mentioned this because the Mamalas owners are on the yes side. There's a ballot question likely to be before the voters in November that would raise the tip wage from whatever, $6 and something in Massachusetts, and then the employer. If your tip doesn't get you to $15 an hour,
Right.
they have to make up something like that. Would raise the tip minimum wage to the regular minimum wage, which would address, I guess you would say, your position. I know
Right.
the Mamalas people support that. Katie, thanks for the history lesson. We should have mentioned that. Thank you very much for making that call.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
877-301-8970 is the number. Whom do you tip in your life at Christmas time? And it can get very expensive for people at times.
How about your yoga? You go to yoga, don't you go to yoga?
I do.
How much do you tip the yoga person?
Well, you know what? I'm embarrassed to say it didn't occur to me because I'm paying them every month to go.
Yeah, but why would that be any different than anybody else who provides a service?
Because I didn't think I would
Okay,
never
now
tip
you've
like a
thought about it.
lawyer.
Okay.
Now I got.
What are you going to do?
I don't know. Maybe like $100 or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well,
that's really
because you
generous.
asked me these things on the radio.
Well, that's why we're here on the radio.
Well,
if
I
we
would
were
point
on the
out.
radio,
I would
ask
point out
elsewhere.
that you make all these claims, Jim.
Yeah.
But as we point out, the people that the driver,
dehumidifier
the delivery driver, the UPS guy, and the.
Can I make an admission?
Mm-hmm.
I have never tipped my yoga instructor. You believe? Is that hard to believe?
I can't see you in yoga, Jim.
Yeah, I could really be
can't
doing
always see
that.
you. Everyone is saying that they want the tip in cash. Cash is king.
Of course.
Yep.
Cash is king.
Many people say they tip the Instacart, DoorDash drivers, the people that come and deliver their food very generously too.
Well, and it is better, as that gentleman said a little while ago, to tip them in cash so they're not screwed by the provider there. Dylan in Georgetown.
Listen to this.
I'm sorry,
This
Dylan,
person,
wait 1 second.
This person tips $75 to the mailman because they have a lot of stairs.
Well, that's
Yeah,
if you're,
and at doggy daycare, they give $10 Dunkin' Donuts gift certificates to every person that works there, and that's 8 people, so that's $80.
That's a lot of money.
And $200 for the house cleaner.
Yeah, but
wow.
when your dog was around, was there anybody more? I hope your kids aren't
You have to
listening.
give
Was
her 1
anybody
week's-
more important to you than
yeah,
your dog?
you had to give the dog walker 1 week's pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. But it's
Did
very
you do
difficult.
that?
I did, but I have more money now than I used to. I mean, it's very difficult for lots of people.
It is.
To
Well,
do
obviously,
this
you
at
tip what you
Christmas
can
time.
afford.
Well, that's the important
But can I tell you
thing
something? You
remember.
should tip everybody, assuming you can afford something.
Yeah, but you don't want to give somebody $2. If you're in dire financial straits, I think it's perfectly fine to write somebody a note, tell them how much they mean to you, and give them banana bread, even though that person trashed me.
By the way,
about the
anybody,
banana
we
bread.
take phone calls in order. Anybody who'd be happy to get a banana bread as a Christmas
Wrapped
tip,
up in a nice bow.
we'll take you next.
Dylan from Georgetown.
By the way, if you're so good at making banana bread, how come you've never once?
I don't make it anymore.
You don't make
I used to make it when that was in my younger days when I was hard pressed for cash. Dylan from Georgetown.
Hello,
Thank
Dylan.
you for calling.
How are you?
Hi, yeah. So I'm just calling in about the tipping thing. Hello?
No, you're on. That's why we said Dylan. Hi.
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 Yeah, so I was just calling in about the whole barista tipping thing because I think it's like very important to be tipping like the baristas and the people who make your drinks because they are the ones who are making your drinks and you always got to tip them, especially around the holidays a lot because they are making like all those like crazy orders and they're working really hard.
I agree. Well, that's it.
Yeah, it's very important.
I agree. Dylan, excellent call. You made your case very well. And Marjorie is nodding in agreement. Actually not, but she would. Dylan says you should tip your barista. They're treated not so well. They work really hard. Do you tip your baristas, Marjorie?
My daughter got an espresso machine for her wedding, and she didn't have room for it in New York. So I now have an espresso machine. So I'm not.
So
going
you
to
don't
the
have any
baristas
relationships
anymore.
with baristas?
No, I don't. Listen to this. What about the guy pumping gas at the increasingly rare full service station?
Well, if you go there all the time, and the person is pumping your gas all the time, give them. You know what I would give that person?
What?
A banana bread. That's what I would give the gas pumper at my. I have an electric vehicle. If you don't.
Someone says that the mail carrier that I talked about being deceased with the mail only kept undeliverable mail, and he was a wonderful man. I'm sure he was a wonderful man, but he kept my Filene's bills, so they were deliverable. He didn't. It wasn't all undeliverable that he kept.
Why did we ever find out why he kept? Was he a hoarder? Why did he keep all this?
I don't know.
Well, I guess he didn't. He could work less if you don't have to
I
deliver
don't know.
everything.
Jonathan on the road. Thank you
Hey,
for
Jonathan
calling.
on the road. What's up?
Yes, hi. Can you hear me? Hello?
Sure. Yeah, we're on. You're on. I mean, I'm on too.
Very good.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm a private music instructor. I teach piano and drum lessons. And, most of my students will tip me like 1 week's worth of whatever they pay me. So
that's good.
Some students pay more, some students pay less, but that's about what they average. So I think that's like a good rule of thumb to live by. So anybody that I see throughout the year, my cleaning lady that comes, it's great. I tip her whenever I pay everybody for one service. I think that's a good rule to live
Now,
by.
Jonathan, we're out of time, but very quickly, if instead of tipping you the equivalent of 1 week's lesson, your instructee tipped you with a loaf of homemade banana bread, how would you feel about that?
I mean, I'm not going to complain because I love homemade baked goods. But
There you go.
Cash is king. I need the money.
Cash is king. Thank you, Jonathan, for your honesty.
Well,
we
music
appreciate
teachers
it.
do need the money because they don't
Show's
get paid
over.
enough, and they're usually
They don't.
talented all the
No,
time.
almost nobody gets paid enough.
Okay, thank you for listening to another
Thank
edition
you.
of Boston Public Radio. You can keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined by NYU medical ethicist Art Kaplan, our national security expert Juliet Kayyem, Wall Street Journal tech columnist Joanna Stern, the Bay State banners Ron Mitchell, and artist Paul Goodnight on the banner's virtual art gallery highlighting Boston's artists of color. Plus, we got a big show tomorrow, Jim.
Who else?
Jimmy Tingle, the great comedian, and Bethany
yeah.
Van Delft as well. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna, who takes so much grief from Jim, Jamie, but I think that's outrageous.
Gets what he gives.
Special thanks to the
No, he's
PPL
actually he's a fabulous guy.
team,
Most of the
Maddie
time.
Geyer, Angelica Marrero, and Sandra Lopez Burke. I want to remind you guys that 2 o'clock, right after us, the Culture Show is on ahead of his performance in Boston. Brookline native and comedian Alex Edelman, who's going to be with us on Friday at the library. He's going to be with Jared this afternoon talking about his comedy rooted in his Jewish upbringing, explores Jewish identity, anti-Semitism. And again, he's going to be with us right here at the Boston Public Library on Friday. And the Blue Heron Vocal Ensemble, if you haven't heard them, they are fantastic. Ahead of their upcoming concert, Christmas in Medieval England. I am Marjorie Egan.
By the way, I listened to the whole Culture Show yesterday. I haven't been able to listen.
It's great.
Really,
really they're doing a great job.
Fun and good.
Chelsea,
Congratulations
our former
to all of
producer,
them.
Jared, Callie Crossley, Edgar B. Hurd III. It's a great show.
It's a really great
Brian
start.
Bell, who used to do work for us too, and John was out.
With us, we say.
With us.
We say, yes.
With us. That's right.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm Marjorie Egan.
Oh, I'm Jim Browdy.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you can tune in tomorrow, and I hope
Thank
you have a great
for coming,
afternoon.
everybody. We appreciate it.